Yo, it's your boy DZ, man. You already know it's not about the setback, it's about the get back. I appreciate everybody that watches the channel, and I appreciate everybody that subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate y'all. Yeah, they disqualified and removed the district attorney, Fani Willis, off the Trump interference of the election case. They removed her. Now, she fought now to try to stay on this case, and she's still fighting. She's going to the Supreme Court on it, the Georgia Court of Appeals. They disqualified her, and it's only right in this situation because of the circumstances of her appointing Nathan Wade as the special prosecutor, and she knew she had a personal relationship with him. And this is why I say these lawyers, they're corrupt. They're in cahoots with each other, and they think that, that they're above the law. They think that everybody that doesn't have a law degree is beneath them. And they feel that because they know the law, that everybody else isn't as smart as them. And we see here that the Georgia Court of Appeals had to stand on this one and remove her, because it's too many people that is on this case where they formed a RICO now on this situation. People, they want Trump to go to jail, but we already see Trump won the election and he's not going to jail. We see this. And I don't really think the people from watching Young Thug's trial can trust Fani's word, because now we see that's two separate cases that didn't go the way that she said they were going to go. And I don't think Fani should be presiding over these situations. And I'm sure, some people might look at it different. And we're going to talk about it here, man. We're going to get into it in just a second, man. I appreciate everybody that watches the channel, though, most definitely. One of those situations. How's everybody doing today? And it's your boy DZ. We are in the building today. Yeah, so they got it here. They say Georgia appeal courts disqualify DA Fani Willis from Trump's election case. Let's indictment stand. See, now they disqualified her, right? But the indictment still stands. So they're still going to try and prosecute the situation, I guess, on the remaining people that are on the case, but they disqualified her from being connected to the case. And I'm going to tell you, though, now that they disqualified her, right, because she was put in the line of fire to go at Trump. They put her in the line of fire to say, here, you go get Trump. They disqualified her. Now they're going to put somebody on the case that's going to end up dropping the case. Watch how the game go. Everybody was hyped up to see Trump go to jail, to see Trump get convicted. Everybody had in their mind that Trump was going to jail. But what we see now is it's a lot of games and court proceedings going on. And now nobody has that same energy. And it says a Georgia appeal court disqualified Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from overseeing the criminal election interference prosecution of President-elect Donald Trump and other defendants. But the appeal court let stand the indictment against the defendants who are accused of crimes related to their efforts to overturn Trump's loss in Georgia 2020 election to President Joe Biden. So we got it here, right? And they got the appeal in here too. Let me see here. Hold up. Yeah, hold up. Let me see what we got here. All right. A Georgia appeal court on Thursday disqualified Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from overseeing the criminal election interference prosecution of President-elect Donald Trump and other defendants. But the Court of Appeals let stand the indictment against the defendants who are accused of crimes related to their efforts to overturn Trump's loss in Georgia's 2020 election to President Joe Biden. However, Trump's criminal defense attorney argued later that the ruling on Willis put an effective end to the case against the president-elect. Willis' office is filing said plan to ask the Georgia Supreme Court to overturn the appeal court's disqualification of her from Trump's case. The appeals court decision overturns a Fulton County Superior Court judge's ruling that allows Willis to remain on the case despite arguments by Trump's attorneys that she should be disqualified due to impropriety of her romantic relationship with Nathan Wade, the top prosecutor whom she had picked to lead the case. Now, if this is not showing the corruption, what is? Being as though that she was in charge of the case and she appointed somebody that she had a personal relationship with, just let the world know this is how the system goes. It's all inside work. When they do these type of things in the legal system, they expect other people not to understand it. They expect other people just to accept because they're the legal system. But you got to understand, right? People like Trump and these other people, they got high power lawyers too. And they know the law. So they're coming at an angle to face them head on. Not as if it was just any old regular person trying to defend themselves and hiring an attorney that already has a personal relationship with them. These attorneys that they hired have personal relationships with them. So it makes it harder for them just to push the way that they would normally push with anybody just being charged in a case like this. And we see if you don't have certain inside links in these situations, you get railroaded. But if you got certain links inside these situations, you get away with certain things. Because a lot of people, feel Trump interfered with the election. And they thought he was going to jail from all of this publicity against Trump. But now we see they can't get Trump. And the other people that are still fighting for their freedom are going to end up getting the case thrown out because they charge this as a RICO case. This was a RICO case, but they have to be able to prove a RICO. And they have to go through all of these different appeals and different legal proceedings to see how far the case is going to go. And we see that it's like dying out, honestly. The hype isn't even there. It was a certain level of hype for this as one point that it isn't now. It's just lightly talked about. So, we're going to see. And it says, however, Willis' office is in the filing said it plans to ask Georgia Supreme Court to overturn the appeal court's disqualification of her from Trump's case. Now, the appeals court's decision to overturn Fulton County Superior Court's judge ruling that allowed Willis to remain on the case despite the arguments by Trump's attorneys that she should be disqualified due to the impropriety of her romantic relationship with Nathan Wade, the top prosecutor whom she picked to lead the case. Now, she picked the prosecutor that she was having a relationship to go after the president. she should have known that this was going to come back to bite her. For real. The Court of Appeals in its decision said that the remedy offered by Judge Scott McPhee, which let Willis remain on the case if Wade withdrew from handling, was improper. Everybody that was on the case should have been removed that were in ties with each other. But they tried to justify it by saying, if we move Wade off the case, then we can let Fani stay. But Fani was the one that appointed Wade to the case. Why would they do that? And I'm telling you, what I notice is, right, these judges that are inside the courtrooms, they have real personal relationships with these attorneys. So when they make the rulings out of their emotional state. They use some of the law and how they feel personally to make certain decisions. And it says, hold up. It says, after carefully considering the trial court's finding in its order, we conclude that it erred by failing to disqualify DA Fani Willis and her office, the appeal court said. So Fani should have been disqualified. Nathan Wade should have been disqualified from the door because they colluded together to go at Trump. And I'm sure, like any human being would do, they sat down together and discussed going at Trump before they went at him. And she let him know, I'm going to put you as the lead prosecutor and we're going to go at him. And like they said, I think he made about $600,000 by him getting the case. So we see how it goes, right? And it says, the remedy crafted by the trial court to prevent an ongoing appearance of impropriety did nothing to address the appearance of impropriety that existed at the time when DA Willis was exercising her broad pretrial discretion about who to prosecute and what charges to bring, the court said. So now, you know, the appeal court going to look at it a little different than the judge would that's just sitting on the bench. It's a different scenario. While we recognize that the appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. Now, the public already looks at this as some funny business. Even though a lot of people feel Trump should go to jail. But the public is looking at how they go about proceeding these certain things against people. But being as though that these people are Trump and these high profile people, we get to see it for what it is. But the lower level people, they're still going to run over top of us anytime. It's the game. Let me see here. It said, but the appeals court wrote, we affirm, however, the denial of the appellant's motion to dismiss the indictment. So they're not dismissing the indictment. Not yet. The indictment is still there, but I guarantee you in time to come, they're going to dismiss the whole indictment. The whole world was hyped up about this, and they're going to end up dismissing everything. And you know what the world's going to say? Oh, man, yes, it was favored for them. Yes, it was. It's because who they are. You said that's what she owes. Let me see. What you mean when you say that's what she owes, Rio? Yeah, let me see. Trump's lawyer, Steve Shadow, in a statement said the Georgia Court of Appeals, in a well-reasoned and just decision, has held that DA Fani Willis' misconduct in this case against President Trump requires the disqualification of Willis and her office. Of course, and it does. Willis should have been disqualified in other situations, like the Young Thug situation. She should have been disqualified in that. But Young Thug's attorney is just fighting with that attorney against the system. When all the defendants that are in Trump's situation, them lawyers are going at Fani hard. So it makes the public look at the system as if the system is flawed by these people being in position, running this big, high profile situation. Let me see here. Hold up. The court highlighted that Willis' misconduct created an odor of mendacity and an appearance of impropriety that could only be cured by disqualification of her entire office, Shadow said. As the court rightfully noted, only the remedy of disqualification will suffice to restore public's confidence. This decision puts an end to the politically motivated persecution, of the next president of the United States. Now, you already know that this was politically motivated, and the whole world says that Joe Biden put her up to this. Honestly, the whole world. And we know that Joe Biden put her up to this because they felt like his son was being targeted wrongfully too. Even though it's plenty of people that have been arrested for these type of situations, like what Joe Biden's son has been arrested for, but Joe Biden feels that his son was only targeted because it was his son. And just like they feel these people were targeted just because it was Trump and they didn't want Trump to run again. And Trump said to the whole world that if I would have never ran or if I would drop out the race, they would drop these charges, which was true. So we're seeing that, it's a lot of fishy stuff in this business, man. Now, listen here. The Georgia case is one of 2 criminal cases pending against Trump. So we already know that they're going to drop the cases against Trump. This was just political hype trying to get Trump not to run. And I really think it backfired on them. It didn't go the way they wanted to go. All right. The president-elect was convicted earlier this year in New York State Court of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records related to a hush money payment to a porn star named Stormy Daniels before 2016 presidential election. Trump has yet to be sentenced in that case. And what I'm telling you with that case is Trump has an appeal on that case. And even though he was already convicted, he has an appeal process. And I'm sure he has some damn good attorneys. So in the appeal process, the case can still be reversed. So even though he was convicted, his appeal options have not been exhausted. So the conviction is not set in stone yet. And that's what people don't understand. Yes, he was convicted of 34 felonies. On The View, they always say he's been convicted of 34 felonies. He's a felon. But there is an appeal process once you get convicted. You can get these things reversed. And that's just the truth, right? So it says the judge in this case Monday rejected Trump's request to toss out the conviction and the indictments on claim of presidential immunity. Now, even though they rejected it, who says the Court of Appeals won't accept it? Now, let's be honest with that one, right? Prosecutors in the case had used testimony and other evidence from former White House employees, which Trump's lawyers argued ran afoul of a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that gave presidents presumptive criminal immunity for so-called official acts in office. And that's what I'm saying. Trump was still the president at the time. So that's why I think that is all the way going to be wiped out, because he still was the president, and we all know the president gets immunity. Now, after the president's out of office, it's a different story. But while he's in office, which he still was at the time, he's able to be granted immunity. But, people don't want to look at it for what it is for real. We get these things in our mind and we want to believe them just because what we see. And you got to understand, Trump is going to have some heavy hitter lawyers pushing the situation and standing behind him. So we're going to see how that goes, right? And it says prosecutors in the case had used testimony and other evidence from former White House employees, which Trump's lawyers argue ran afoul U.S. Supreme Court ruling that gave President presumptive criminal immunity for so-called official acts in his office, right? But the judge, Juan Merchain, is still considering other arguments Trump's lawyers have made to dismiss the case. And this is what I say to people. There's still other arguments that they're going over to see if they're going to get the case dismissed. They don't just have one argument. They have multiple arguments. Now, maybe what they were saying as the main argument, as him getting the immunity, they didn't want to totally agree with that from the beginning. But there is still other arguments. And then after that, they're still going to appeal to higher courts. So this process is going to go out a lot longer than people would think, And it says, after Trump's election in November, federal prosecutors dropped two criminal cases against him due to Department of Justice policy that bars prosecutions of sitting presidents. So you hear that. They had to drop some of the cases because the law says sitting presidents can't have criminal prosecutions. Now, who knows if they want to re-indict him after he gets out of office, which Fani said that she planned on still prosecuting him after his term. But as we see now, she has been removed from the case. So that's not going to happen on her watch. It's going to have to be another district attorney. And we got to see if they're going to want to take this fight on with Trump. And from her, Fani, going at Trump, I guarantee you they're going to continue to dig stuff up on her. This is how the game goes, man. They're going to continue to dig stuff up on Fani as time goes on. This is not going to be, one of those situations where it's just like somebody's going to get the case and they're just going to move on from Fani. Nah, not at all. Fani done let the people, Joe Biden, and I'm going to tell y'all that, and we're going to be real, she let Joe Biden push her out in the fire. And I guarantee you, Joe Biden doesn't come to her rescue as this heat gets turned up on her. We got to be real with that one. And you said, in one of those cases, Trump was charged with crimes related to his effort to overturn his loss in the 2020 national election. In the other, he was charged with crimes connected to withholding of classified government records after leaving the White House and withholding them from federal officials when they sought to return them. Well, we see all the hype on the situation, honestly, right? We see all the hype on it. But we don't see nothing going in the direction that they told us. They told us Trump was going to be prosecuted. They told us Trump was going to jail. Everybody got hyped up because they see Trump got convicted of 34 felonies. But what if Trump gives all the felonies back? We're going to be saying what we all know. These are privileged proceedings. This is a privileged behavior. Yes. And what I say with Fani, she shouldn't have stuck her nose in that business. You should have allowed someone else to push that issue. That wasn't your fight. And I try to tell people this, and some people, might not agree, but some situation niggas shouldn't be involved in, man. And that's just how it is. When they put you up to these things, even though she is a prosecutor, she's a black prosecutor. She's a black attorney, district attorney. You don't have the same leeway as the other white ones do. And it's just real. You can be cocky, but just know they'll get you out of there too. And we got to be honest with that, man. And they got the appeal right here, right? And it says this is a motion for reconsideration be physically received and December 19th. That was today. Right? And interlocutory application, the appellant's appeal from trial court's order denying their motion to dismiss the indictment and granting in part their motion to disqualify the Atlanta Judiciary Circuit District Attorney Fani Willis, D.A. Willis, and her office. Collectively, the appeals assert numerous grounds to reserve the trial court order, including that the trial court imposed an improper remedy after concluding that D.A. Willis' prosecution is encumbered by a significant appearance of improperty, not grounded on mere status alone, but instead resulting from specific conduct impacting more than mere nebulous public interest because it concerns a public prosecutor. Now, they letting you know they're getting her up out of there. Once, and this is what I try to say to people, right? Once you are a public servant, when the people turn against you, you don't hold the same weight. They said in response, the state asked the court to affirm the trial court in order to totally include the imposition of the alternative remedy requires that either D.A. Willis along with the whole of her office step aside and refer the case to the prosecuting attorney's counsel for reassignment. A special assistant district attorney Nathan Wade, SADA Wade, withdrew from the case. Importantly, the state has not filed a cross appeal asserting that the trial court's finding of this appearance of impropriety should be reversed, according to whether the evidence presented to the trial court adequately supports under the appropriate standards of review on the appeal. Its finding of the existence of the appearance of the property is not before the court. Instead, we must determine whether the remedy fashioned by the trial court for this undisputed finding of significant appearance of improperty was improper or contended to by the appellant. For the reasons explained below, we conclude that it was therefore reverse the trial court denial of the appellant's motion to disqualify. We affirm, however, the denial of the applicant's motion to dismiss the indictment, motion to disqualify special grand jury proceeding, January 24th, 2022. So we see this now. They got some heavy lawyers, man. And it's not going to be just Fani telling us that she's going to make sure Trump gets prosecuted. It don't work like that, man. They got lawyers finding ways to get you up out of the situation. Fani was trying to act as if she was going to get this job done. But we see now Trump has been elected to be the president, and they're dismissing the charges slowly. By next year, people are still going to talk about the situation, but it's not going to be talked about. It's going to be lightly. And what's going to happen? They're going to end up dismissing the charges against the other people. Straight up. Motion to disqualify special grand jury proceeding. This is 2024. Let me see. Concerns about district attorney, particularly, naturally, immediately, and reasonably errs in the minds of the public, the prudent, and most critically, the subjects of the investigation that necessitates the disqualification and investigation of this significance garner the public attention is necessary. Does in touching so many political nerves in our society cannot be burdened by legitimate doubts about the district attorney's motive. The district attorney does not have to be a political, but her investigations do. So you understand that they feel that she did this because she was forced to do it from Joe Biden. This is what they're saying. This was politically motivated. The Superior Court denied the motion to disqualify filed by the remaining alternate electors because they failed to show an actual conflict of interest with DA Willis or any member of her prosecution team. Its order did not explicitly address the appearance of impropriety as the grounds to disqualify. After special grand jury issued its final report recommending criminal charges against the appellant and others, it was dissolved January 9th, 2023. Yeah. Motion to disqualify August 14th, 2003. See, now all of these guys were putting the motion to disqualify in. You know, and they took her and the office off the case, you know, because they're saying Trump is the head of the RICO. Let me see here. DA Willis, on August 14, 2023, DA Willis secured the RICO indictment against the appellants and 10 others. On January 8, 2024, Roman filed a motion to dismiss the indictment and disqualify DA Willis, her office, and SADA Wade from further prosecuting the case on alleged grounds of conflict and appearance impropriety. Romaine alleged a personal relationship between DA Willis and SADA Wade, along with an alleged professional financial interest in the case. And we already knew that. They was trying to keep the money in-house. We already knew that. They was trying to keep the money in-house. Come on, man. We already knew that. After DA Willis spoke publicly in a church service Sunday, January 14, 2024, the other appellants also filed motions seeking dismissal and disqualification on the same grounds, as well as additional grounds of forensic misconduct in connection with the church speech and various other, extrajudicial statements. So when Fani tried to go to the church talking, they used that against her. And, you know, when she went, and people try to use the churches to try to, you know, get the public on their side. Because, you know, when people start talking about God, it makes people listen. It grasps people's attention. So when you go in front of where, you know, the representation of God is, and you try to speak to the public to get people's attention, it makes it seem more relatable to some people, especially to the public. And that's the thing you got to watch out for. When somebody's trying to go to God to present their image to you, hold on. Why are you trying to do that? Don't bring that in this situation. Let us look at this for what it is first. So that really messed her situation up. The trial court ordered on March 15, 2024, the trial court entered an order on the motions of conducting a multiple-day evidentiary hearing. It summarized the issues of its ruling as followed. As alleged, the claims presented a possible financial conflict of interest for district attorney. More importantly, the defense motion and the state's response created a conflict in the evidence that could only be resolved through an evidentiary hearing, and one that could not simply be ignored without engaging in criminal accused constitutional rights to procedural due process. Yeah, so they were violating their due process rights. After receiving 2.5 days of testimony during which the defendants were providing an opportunity to subpoena and introduce whatever relevant and material evidence they could muster, the courts find that defendants failed to meet their burden of providing that the district attorney acquired an actual conflict of interest in the case throughout her personal relationship and reoccurring travels with the lead prosecutor. The other alleged grounds for disqualifications include forensic misconduct are also denied. However, the established record now highlights a significant appearance of impropriety that infects the current structure of the prosecution team, an appearance that must be removed through the state selection of one of the options. The district attorney may choose to step aside along with the whole of her office and refer the prosecution to a prosecution attorney counsel for reassignment. Wade can withdraw, allowing district attorney, defendants, and the public to move forward without his presence and remuneration, distracting from potentially compromising the merits of the case. It was already compromised when she hired Wade and they had a personal relationship and they discussed this situation before time. Even though they say they didn't discuss it, they discussed this coming forward, which all these lawyers do with each other. But, when it's being presented to us, they tell us something different to, make us look at it different. All right. The court trial made the following findings in fact in the order. The transcripts revealed that the trial court precluded cross-examination of D.A. Willis about matters related to forensic misconduct as well as county codes and ordinance. It appears that the trial court limited the evidence in the hearing to the relationship and or any financial elements of it. In an off-the-record ruling references in the transcript. The record before us contains no authenticated recording of transcripts of the church speech, and it was never introduced in the evidence at the hearing. The appellant do not assert an appeal that the trial court erred by limiting the cross-examination and introduction of the evidence of the hearing. See, Willis knew she shouldn't have went to the church trying to, talk, and it didn't help her situation. She was playing a lot of games with that. On November 1st, 2021, the district attorney hired Nathan Wade to serve as SADA and led the investigation that produced the indictment in this case. The district attorney considered at least one other option before hiring Wade, extending an offer to a former governor, Roy Barnes, who declined. See, Roy Barnes was smart. Roy Barnes said, I'm not getting in the middle of this. I know Biden is sending you at Trump. I'm not getting in the middle of that. But us, we want to jump in the middle of it. The flex that we got some type of power, which you don't really have. And now we see they took her out of position. We got to pay attention to that, man. They said the district attorney considered at least one of the options before hiring Wade, extending an offer to former Governor Roy Barnes, who declined. The contract allowed a $250 hourly rate, a relatively low amount by Metro Atlanta standards, for an attorney with Wade's years of service, and containing a ceiling on a maximum number of hours permitted. Under the terms of the first contract, Wade was not to perform more than 60 hours of work per month without written permission. No evidence introduced indicated that Wade ever received permission to exceed these monthly hours cap. His contract was renewed on November 15, 2022, and again on June 12, 2023. So, they always going to renew his contract. And like they say, he had to ask for permission to do more time, but he didn't. He was in a relationship with Fani. Why would he have to ask somebody in the relationship, can I get more hours? I'm just going to say I did more hours. And if I'm humping you, then you're going to say, okay, here, you got more hours. let's be real. Between October 2022 and May 2023, the district attorney Wade traveled together on 4 occasions that resulted in documentable expenses. The first included an extended trip October 2022, to Miami and Aruba and a cruise. Wade initially covered expenses for October 2022 trip totaling approximately $5,223. In December 2022, the two fled to Miami for another cruise, for which the district attorney paid $1,394 for plane tickets, while Wade purchased passage for the cruise along with the vacation related to expenses totaling approximately $3,684. In March 2023, the two traveled to Belize, where Wade covered a resort and restaurant expenses in the amount of approximately $3,000. In May 2023, they traveled to Napa Valley, where Wade covered airfare, lodging, and Uber rides in the amount of $2,829. In addition to the two described taking a number of day-long road trips to Tennessee. So, they were traveling a lot together. They were business partners. They traveled a lot. And of course, they had it planned. They said, we're going to go at Trump. And it really made them look bad because they were in this type of personal relationship. And that's just honest. Now, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, and other parts of Georgia, they also admitted to dining out on multiple occasions and taking turns covering the bill. With seemingly full access to Wade's primary credit card statements, the defendant did not produce evidence of any further documentary expenses or gift, nor were any revealed through the testimony, and total defendants' points to be aggregate documented benefits of at most approximately $12,000 to $15,000 in district attorney's favors. Now they just doing whatever they want. You already know, man. It's their game. The district attorney and Wade testified that these expenditures were not meant as gifts and not designed to benefit the district attorney. Both testified that district attorney regularly reimbursed Wade in cash. And if not reimbursed, the district attorney covered a comparable related expense. For example, the district attorney testified that she reimbursed Wade in cash for the Aruba trip, which she estimated cost around $2,000, and that she gave him money for both cruises. She further claimed that she reimbursed Wade for the entirety of Belize trip and that she paid for Napa Valley excursions. Finally, while Wade could have bought meals in 2020, which totaled more than $100, she would also regularly pay for his meals. We already know what it is. Such as reimbursement practice may be unusual and the lack of any documentary corroboration understandably concerning, yet the testimony withstood direct contradiction, was corroborated by other evidence. For example, her payment of airfare for two on the 2022 Miami trip and was not so incredible as to inherently unbelievable. However, as the district attorney herself acknowledged, no ledger exists other than best guesstimate. There is no way to be certain that expenses were split completely evenly, and the district attorney may well have received a net benefit of several $100s despite the after considering all the surrounding circumstances. The court finds that the evidence did not establish the district attorney receipt of material financial benefits as a result of her decision to hire and engage in a romantic relationship with Wade. Simply put, the defendants have not presented sufficient evidence indicating that the expenses were not roughly divided evenly, or that the district attorney was, that the district attorney were not roughly divided evenly, or that the district attorney was or currently remains greatly pecuniarily interested in the prosecution. In addition, and much more important, the court finds, based largely on district attorney testimony, that the evidence demonstrates that the financial gain flowing from her relationship with Wade was not a motivating factor on the part of district attorney to indict and prosecute this case. While a general motive for more income can never be disregarded entirely, the district attorney was not financially destitute throughout this time or in any great need, as she testified that her salary exceeds $200,000 per year without any indications of excessive expenses or debts. Similarly, the court further found that the defendants have failed to demonstrate that the district attorney conduct has impacted or influenced the case to the defendant's detriment. While prejudice is not a required element for disqualification, it is relevant to consideration of due process and the defendant's request remedy of completion of dismissal. So, the court was riding with the district attorney at first. So, they wasn't trying to dismiss both factors. They was only saying that they was going to remove one person, and it had to be Wade to get off the case. But now that they went to appealing court, they said that they had to remove Fani Willis because it lost the trust in the public's eye. Defendants argue that the financial arrangements created on incentive to prolong the case, but in fact, there is no indication that the district attorney is interested in delaying anything. Indeed, the record is quite to the contrary. Before the relationship came to light, the state requested that the trial begin less than 6 months after the indictment. Soon, therefore, the state opposed severance of the objection defendants who did not demand their statutory right to a speedy trial. The state argued that it is only wanted to try the case once, assuming that such a trial would have been affirmed after any necessary post-conviction appeals. The state amended its proposed timeline November 2023 to request that the trial commence less than 1 year after the return of the indictment. And even before indictment, the district attorney approved a grand jury presentment that included fewer defendants than the special proposed grand jury recommended. In sum, the district attorney has not in any way acted in conformance with the theory that she arranged a financial scheme to enrich herself or endear herself to Wade by extending the duration of this prosecution or engagement in excessive litigation. Without sufficient evidence, the district attorney acquired a personal stake in the prosecution, or that her financial arrangement had an impact on the case. The defendant claims of the actual conflict must be denied. This finding is by no means an indication that the court condones this tremendous lapse in judgment or unprofessional manner, or the district attorney's testimony during the evidentiary hearing. Rather, it is undersigned opinion that the Georgia law does not permit the finding of an actual conflict for simple making by bad choices, even repeatedly. And it is the trial court's duty to confine itself to the relevant issues and applicable law probably brought before it. So, the court was on Fani's side, but it's when you go to the appeal court. That's why I always tell you, just because someone is found guilty doesn't mean that they can't get it reversed, because the regular court was saying that it was okay for Fani to be still on the case. But when it went to the Court of Appeal, they said she needed to be removed. This wasn't her fight. It didn't warrant her to be on the case because she had the personal relationship with Wade, and the public is looking at it from a different point of view. So they removed her. They straight removed her. Although the trial court found insufficient evidence of the actual conflict of interest, it also concluded that the record made at evidentiary hearing established that the district attorney's prosecution is encumbered by an appearance of impropriety. That appearance is not created by mere status alone, but comes because of specific conduct and impacts more than a mere nebulous public interest because it concerns a public prosecutor. So that's why she had to go. It's a public prosecutor that it looks fishy. It looks fishy from the personal relationship she had. She got to go. Even if the romantic relationship began after SADA Wade's initial contract in November 2021, the district attorney chose to continue supervising and paying Wade while maintaining such a relationship. She further allowed regularly and loose exchange of money between them without any exact or verifiable measures of reconciliation. This lack of a confirmed financial split creates the possibility and appearance that the district attorney benefited, albeit non-materially, from a contract whose award lay solely within her purview and policy. Yeah, she benefited, but she's not going to say she benefited, but of course, he was taking her out, doing things with her. I'm sure they was buying each other things, and she made sure that he got the check. Most importantly, were the case allowed to proceed unchanged, the prima facie concerns raised by the defendants would persist, as the district attorney testified her relationship with Wade has only committed after these motions and is stronger than ever. Wade's patently unpersuasive explanation for the inaccurate interrogatories he submitted in his pending divorce indicates a willingness on his part to wrongfully conceal his relationship with the district attorney. As the case moves forward, reasonably members of the public could easily be left to wonder whether the financial exchanges have continued, resulting in some form to benefit the district attorney, or either whether the romantic relationship has resumed. Put differently, an outsider could reasonably think that the district attorney is not exercising her independent professional judgment totally free of any compromising influences as long as Wade remains on the case. This is unnecessary. Precipitation will persist. So we already know, man, this was inside work. This was all inside work. Fani wanted to keep it in-house, and she tried. But this was a bad time to do that because the big eye was on him. The big eye was on him. And we see this. The big eye was on him, man. And let me see, hold up. And these are all the defendants that put their motions in, right? Let me see here. Yeah, these are all defendants that put their motions in. Yeah. He said, hold on, let me read this last one here. And we're going to skip through some of this. It says, in this case, the trial court expressly found that the district attorney had no conflict of interest and rejected the allegations of actual impropriety arising from her relationship with Nathan Wade. It rejects the notion that she received any material financial benefit from her hiring of Wade, that she hired him as part of a scheme to enrich herself, or that their financial arrangement had any impact on this case. It was certainly critical of her choices and chastise her for making them. I take no issue with that criticism. And if the trial court had chosen in its discretion to disqualify her and her office, this would be a different case. But that it is not the remedy the trial court chose. Let me see. And I believe our case law permits us from rejecting the remedy just because we do not like, or just because we might have gone farther had we been the trial judge. And they put the case law in there. Decision to disqualify prosecutors based on appearance or impropriety is within the discretion of the trial court, and the appellate court will not interfere, whereas here the court's discretion was not abused, overruled on the grounds. Let me see. Hold up. Yeah, it gets real. See, it's all in-house until it goes to the other courts. Straight up. The ultimate determination of whether an attorney should be disqualified from representing the client in judicial proceedings rests in the sound discretion of the trial judge. Okay. That's why you gotta appeal it. Because they be riding with each other. I tell you that real quick. Review. Under abuse of discretion standards, recognize that there is a range of possible conclusions the trial judge may reach, and we will affirm the trial court's decision, even though we would have gone the other way had it been our call. Citation and punctuations omitted. Let me see here. Every day in the courtroom, all over this state, trial judges solemnly and diligently fulfill their constitutional obligations and perform a vital and indispensable public service when they convene hearings, listen to testimony, observe witnesses, make credibility determinations, resolve conflicts in the evidence, weigh the evidence, and exercise their discretion in countless ways. We should not lightly interfere with their work or weaken their discretion by imposing our will because we don't like the result. Okay. Because I am convinced that is what the majority has done in this case. Respectfully. Yeah. So we see here, man. Fani Willis has been disqualified and removed from the case. So we're going to see how it goes when they put somebody else on this case, man. Yes, we are. Let me see here. Hold up. This is when they dismiss 2 of the criminal counts. So this is when they dismissed 2 of the criminal counts. And this was back in September. Yeah. But it said, judge on Thursday dismissed 2 criminal counts against Donald Trump in his Georgia election interference case, but kept intact the top racketeering charge and other counts against the former president and other defendants. Fulton County Superior Court Scott McPhee also tossed out a 3rd count that had been lodged against a number of Trump allies. Trump, who is the Republican presidential nominee, was not charged with the other counts. The ruling leaves in place the overall indictment against Trump and others, including the most serious charge of violating Georgia's Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. The indictment alleged that Trump and his allies allegedly tried to reverse his loss in the 2020 election to President Joe Biden in Georgia. As part of his bordered effort to overturn Biden's victory in the national election for the White House. Let me see here. President Trump and his legal team in Georgia have prevailed once again. Trump's attorney Steve Shadow said in a statement and ruling, the trial court has decided that Counts 15 and 27 in the indictment must be quashed, dismissed. The two counts that McPhee dismissed against Trump and other defendants are conspiracy to commit filing false documents and filing false documents. The third count, the judge tossed numbers as a count 14 in the indictment, was criminal attempt to commit filing false documents. McPhee in his decision found that a 1890 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court in this case in Lani prompted states' ability to prosecute perjury and false filings in the federal district court, and as a result, the 3 counts related to the alleged false filing must be squashed. This is the second time McGee has dismissed counts in an indictment against Trump. In March, judge tossed out 3 counts, a solicitation of violation of the oath by a public officer that had been lodged against Trump. But McGee left open the door for prosecutors to refile those charges if they substantiated them with additional evidence. Proceeding in this case had been largely on hold while Trump and other defendants appealed McVeigh's ruling that allowed Fulton County District Attorney Fani to remain as top prosecutor. Trump appeal is set to be heard in December, and it's December, so they heard the appeal. Bow, bow, bow. E-Deck, what you said, E-Deck? You said D.A. Willis was good prosecutor, but she lost her mojo trying to be bigger than she is. Yeah. And I'm sure she was a good prosecutor. Honestly, I'm sure she was a good prosecutor. She was doing her thing, but she went at Trump and she was instructed to go at Trump. See, when you trying to take on a job for somebody else and do somebody else's dirty work, which was Biden's dirty work, you got to understand. You might be being put in a bad situation. And I really think that this here is going to be more to come for Fani. Me, honestly, I think it's going to be more to come for her, because when she went at Trump, she was instructed to by Biden. And Biden ain't going to come to her savior when they want to run her down. People don't understand that. When you trying to do things for somebody else, as in this situation, when you in the hot seat, they're going to turn a cheek on you. And I'm sure Biden probably reached out to her. Yeah, we want to file charges against Trump. They couldn't get him on the federal level, so they said they want to go at him on the state level. And this might come back to haunt Fani. By her going at Trump on the state level, they're trying to dig everything up on her. And nobody would have knew that her and Wade had a personal relationship until the people dug deep into it. You got to remember now, they were going to go deep into her background and everything that she does in her personal life to attach it to a situation to make it look good for them. And honestly, they did a good job at it. You know, some people might not like it and say, oh man, Trump's guilty. He might be. He might was found guilty. But he still has an appeal process and he has an opportunity to give it back. So if he gives it back, what are we going to say? Yeah, he was convicted, but the charges were reversed. Like, it can happen. So in this situation, I think Fani jumped out the window with some instructions from Biden. And I really think it's going to hurt her in the future, you know, because everything that she's touching right now is like falling apart. And the crazy thing is, I think they reelected her. I really think she was reelected, and I think everything that she's getting into is like really falling apart. And honestly, you know, so we shall see, you know. Let's see here. District Attorney Fani Willis. See what we got. Let's see what we got. Now, this was Trump's election case halted pending outcome of the challenge to the DA. So everything got frozen in this. And I think it helped Trump out. This is how Trump got elected, honestly. This is how Trump was able to get elected. Everything froze from the proceedings. And, the people are looking at the direction that the world is going in. And then they put Kamala Harris in front of us to try to, influence us to vote that way when we already went with Biden on his decision and it didn't help us. It didn't benefit the world at all. I think it made things more complicated. And it's crazy that now that Biden's going out of office, gas is down to $2.79. Why isn't that? Why the whole time Biden was in office, gas was outrageous? Why couldn't it come down in? And it's like real funny, and like they said, Biden, he gave clemency to 1,500 people. And I'm going to go I am going to go find that person he gave clemency to, right? Because he said that you're not black if you don't vote for me. This is what Biden said. But he gave clemency, I want to see, to the people he gave clemency to. I'm going to try to look that up. Because the one lady that he gave clemency to, she had a fraud case for $54 million. And Biden gave her clemency for that, right? I want to know what inner communities did Biden try to help on his way out to office. But this was his trajectory, people that he wanted to go to, is the African American people. That was his goal, to tell people that you're not black if you don't vote for me, right? Come on. Man, but we're not hearing Trump say that. He being himself. And you got to understand he's just being himself. But Biden tried to use the angle, which they always use on us, to manipulate us, to make us go for what they want us to go for. And then when we see that it's a bunch of nonsense, it's nothing we can do or say about it. It's the game, man. Now, let's see here. It says the Georgia appeal courts on Wednesday halted the criminal election interference case against Donald Trump in the state pending the outcome of his bid to disqualify the district attorney prosecuting the former president. So you see that. Listen to that again. The Georgia appeals court on Wednesday halted the criminal election interference case against Donald Trump in the state's pending outcome of his bid to disqualify the district attorney prosecuting the former president. Now, this here was in June 5th, 2024, right? Now we see December 2024, right before Christmas, they disqualified her. They halted the whole proceeding until they disqualified her. And she's out of here now. They know the game, man. People don't understand that. Trump knows the game. We just don't know the game, man. It's a major game, and everybody's like upset at Trump too because he's not paying taxes, right? But he knows the game. If the world understood the game, which we need to learn this shit, then we would be getting the same treatment. We just don't know the game. So, and it's messed up that our people that are in position don't teach us the game. We don't know the game. All we know is what we're taught. Everything is learned behaviors, and we don't know the game. So, of course, we're not going to know how to get these tax breaks and different things like that, because these are the things that's not taught in school. They're not taught in hooded areas, so we won't never know unless we enlighten each other about these things when people learn it. But it's the game. The order by the Georgia Court of Appeals all but guarantees that Trump and 8 co-defendants in this case will not stand trial before the November presidential election, where Trump is presumptive Republican nominee. And he won. Trump won it. The appeal court said it will hear arguments October 4th on Trump's effort to boot Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from the case, and they were able to achieve their goal. Trump is appealing a decision by the Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McPhee to allow Willis to remain on the case after her romantic relationship with the top prosecutor on the case and came to light. And another thing, Wade better watch yourself. You know, you better watch yourself, man. These people think because they up there with these people that they one of them. Nah, you ain't one of them, man. They'll rock your bell too. You know, you doing the work of somebody that really don't mean nothing to you. But we don't understand that. That's another thing. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing. The appeal courts must rule by March 14th. He said the appeal courts must rule on the question by March 14th, right? 2025, according to the court's website. If Trump loses his appeal, he could then ask the Georgia Supreme Court to hear his argument for Willis disqualification. Well, she's done. Trump and other defendants charged with crimes related to their attempt to reverse 2020 election to the President Joe Biden in Georgia after the popular vote. The appeals court ordered Wednesday holding that the case also applies to Rudy Giuliani, David Sheffer, Robert Chesley, Michael Roman, Mark Meadows, Kathy Latham, Jeffrey Clark, and Harris Floyd. I think Harris Floyd was the guy that was mixed race, I think. But, yeah. Trump was found guilty in New York State court last Thursday on all 34 felony counts, falsified business records related to the $130,000 hush money payment by his then lawyer Michael Cohen to porn star Stormy Daniels shortly before 2016 election to buy her silence about the alleged sexual twist with Trump. And Trump was due to be sentenced June 11th, and it never happened. Yeah, it never happened. So, we see here, man. Let's see here. Hold up. Let me see what this thing here say. What did it say? They ain't saying nothing about Biden. Yeah, we was hoodwinked. When it came to Biden, they hoodwinked us. You know what I'm saying? They straight hoodwinked us, man. Crazy. Trump won the election anyway. So, it wasn't really too much, I guess, the people were going to be able to do. Trump won the election any damn way. The game. And they got Willis off the case. So, yeah. They got Fani off the case. Trump has won the election, and in a couple weeks he'll be in the office. And Trump is saying, you know, as soon as he get in office, he's gonna do mass deportation. You know, I mean, I don't know how some of y'all feel about that, about the mass deportation, but it doesn't affect me. So I got to worry about what affects me. I can't worry about that. That ain't affecting me. Them deporting people. If you was in another country, right, and they were talking about deporting you, that other country wouldn't care. Straight up. We be concerned about things that have no connection to you. Things that don't do anything to hurt you. So the people that are here illegally, that's something that they got to worry about. That doesn't affect me if they get deported. I'm still going to live, you know? And that's something that those people have to worry about. If your paperwork's not right, you got to get your paperwork right. You know? And we see that there is foreigners committing crimes. There's people here committing crimes, but they can't deport them. But people come from other countries and they start committing crimes and doing things here as if they can't go nowhere. And then, you know, people want to stand up for them because they got kids here, they got family here. And honestly, we really don't understand that. They don't care about that. The world doesn't care about that. That's something that you care about. But collectively, as a whole, the world doesn't care that you're separated from your family When you go to jail, the world don't care. When you're wrongfully convicted of a crime, they don't care. So we don't open our eyes to these things because we only want to look at it the way we want to look at it. We get emotional attached to certain things, and we only want to view it that way. But the world doesn't care at all. The things you think that the world cares about, they don't. Not at all. It's going to keep going regardless if you here or if the next person's here. So the most important thing is to make sure that you're trying to do right, that you're okay. Because your stands on if somebody else gets deported, it ain't going to stop them. And we already know when Trump gets in office, he said he's going mass deportation. He's going to go ham. And trust me, he's going to be out for revenge. Honestly, anybody would. We don't want to be honest and be real with it, but anybody that felt that they were targeted in this position, they would come back with the same thing. But, we so used to being lied to and lying to ourselves to say, no, I wouldn't do that. No, reason why you wouldn't do it because you've never been in that situation. Everybody can tell you what they won't do that hasn't been in that situation. But when you're in a certain situation, then you're like, well, yeah, I would have done it too. If you felt you were targeted by the legal system, you would do the same exact thing. But the only thing is, you don't have the control to do it. You don't have the power to do it. Your voice is not strong enough to do it. So, of course, you wouldn't do it. If you had a strong voice, as in the president, somebody that at this level, you would do it. And I see a lot of people that you don't even have any reach, but your opinion feels strong to you, as in what you would do and why you don't like something. But that's why you don't have reach, because your opinion doesn't matter. They done manipulated us to make us think that, what we say about what we should do and why we don't like something really matters, when it doesn't. The life is going to continue to still go on. People are going to still continue to do what they do. And when you talk, you're just going to be heard, and that's it. It holds no weight. And now we see everybody thought Trump wasn't going to get it. Everybody thought Fani was going to prosecute Young Thug and prosecute Trump. These were the two major cases on the table a couple years ago. And everybody acts like, oh, okay, well, they got away. Nah. We thought Young Thug was going to get life. We thought Trump was going to jail. Young Thug got out of jail. Trump won the election. So it's the games and the mental games that they play with us when it's their game. It's their world, man. And we hold no weight in that world, man. Straight up. If you ain't got a law degree, you don't hold no weight over there, man. At all. Crazy. People with the law degrees, they hold weight. Or you got the right people on your side vouching for you. That's what's major out here. You having the right people on your side riding with you. When you got the right people, you unstoppable in certain situations. And it's a little bit more to it too. We know. That's how it is, man. But Fani, they got her up out of there. She's no longer on that case. But she's going to appeal the decision of them removing her. But it's not going to hold up, because the appeal courts is going to look at how the public is viewing it. When the public starts viewing things a certain way, we see how it goes. The public opinion is so strong in today's world. That's why they put a lot of information out to the public before you even go to trial now. Before you even get the trial and have a proceeding, the public is already forming their opinion. Heavy. Social media is so heavy right now that they make sure they push it to the public hard. That's like Diddy. They're going to find Diddy guilty because the public done pushed it so much. So he's going to have technicalities to beat this. They was doing it with Trump. The world already said Trump is guilty. The opinion was formed. He's guilty. But now we see the appeal process is going in his favor. Technicalities, circumstances, different situations. And he's got the case reversed. You know, I guarantee you, those 34 felonies that they said Trump was found guilty of get thrown out the window. And when they do, we're going to know why. Yes, that's true. But I'm wondering why people didn't expect it. People really thought they was going to send him to jail? Come on, man. I better pay attention to the game. You know, they mislead us every single day. They tell us what they think we need to hear. And then later on, when things don't go that way, they quiet. It's a lot of silence. Trump won the election. Everybody's quiet. Because a lot of people that might have been agreeing with Trump getting charged, they might have understood that, man, we might need to vote for him because the world don't look too solid. Gas is dropped in December to $2.79. Got some gas the other day. It was $2.79, man. And I'm like, why couldn't gas be $2.79 the whole time Biden was there? Why did it have to come right now? But we not paying attention to that. It only happens at these times. And like I said, I'm about to go look up. Let me go look up about these people that Biden gave clemency to. That's what I want to look up. About the people that Biden gave the clemency to. Because Biden gave clemency to 1,500 people. And I wonder if it was some people that really, really deserved it, as in for us. Because, you know, his slogan was, you know, you're not black if you don't vote for me. That was Biden's thing. You know, sent the black people out there to vote for him. And I want to see how many that he touched. You know, he gave this woman clemency. And, you know, it's been for me, right? What has it been? 2000. It's been 19 years since I had a conviction, right? And I filed for a pardon, and they denied my pardon. I'm like, damn, been 19 years. Yeah, I'll never vote for a Democrat ever again. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it don't help me. Y'all denied me. What did I do? Come on, man. But that's how I let you know these people, they don't care, man. I ain't voting for nobody. Voting is not going to help my situation. If somebody would have said, I'm going to give you the pardon, then I'm going to vote for you. Do something to touch me. I'm not voting to stroke your ego. And that's what's happening here, man. People voting to stroke other people's ego that it doesn't even benefit you at all. It doesn't touch your family. It doesn't help you at all. It only helps them. They mentally tell you these things and mentally get you involved with it, but it doesn't touch you. It doesn't help you. And I'm saying that from all walks of people, not just, you know, from me, from all walks of people. What does it touch you personally? What is resonating with you? What is benefiting your life? Nah, the hype is overhyped for them to get in position, but they need the people to put them in position. That's the crazy thing. They get us overhyped and indulge in their success while we struggle. They get in the office and everything goes up. Nothing goes down. Come on. And then on the way out of office, things start going down. Like, why couldn't we have cheaper gas the whole time Biden was in there so we can feel like, okay, Biden did something. We can feel it. It's like, yeah, okay. I can't feel anything he did in there. Nothing. I feel nothing. You know what I'm saying? Let me look that up, though. Biden. Hold on. Let me try to get this thing up here. Biden clemency. Yeah, let me see if I can get the list. That's what I want to see. Okay. Biden clemency list. So let's see if we can get this. Because I'm hoping it's like public. Okay. Well, listen. I got it right here, guys. Let's go. I got it right here. I got it right here now. Let's talk about it now. Biden's clemency list. This is what we're going to talk about right now. Biden's clemency list. Today, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. granted clemency consisting of 39 pardons and 1,499 commutations. This is what Biden did now. On the way out of office. I want to see how many people. I wonder, do they say the gender on here? I really do. I'm wondering, do they say the gender on here? Because, you know, his famous line, you're not black if you don't vote for me. How many people did he go into them urban areas and say, I'm going to give you a pardon to? We're going to see here. Let's see what we got here. All right. The first person on the list is Nina Simona Allen. She's from Harvest, Alabama. Nina Allen, 49-year-old woman who was convicted of a nonviolent offense in her 20s. In the years since, Ms. Allen returned to school, earned a post-bachelor degree and 2 master's degrees. Now she works in the field of education. Ms. Allen strengthened her community by volunteering in local soup kitchens and in nursing homes. Ms. Allen is described by people who know her as dependable, hardworking woman of integrity. I wonder, they should say the race though, these people, man. Like, honestly, I wonder why isn't the race in here? Falcons Heights, Minnesota. She Alabama, Minnesota. Kelsey Lynn Becklin is a 38-year-old woman who pleaded guilty to a nonviolent offense at the age of 21 after successfully serving her sentence. Ms. Beckham has furthered her education, recently completed a PhD program. In addition to her graduate program, research and academic writing, Ms. Beckham mentioned previously incarcerated individuals who also seek to pursue higher education. She is also an active volunteer in her community. Friends and professors attest to her work ethic, dedication, and genuine care for others. So, that's the second person he pardoned. They really should have the race of these people, man. Because, I don't know. Doran Arthur Brown, a 44-year-old man who pleaded guilty to a nonviolent offense. Mr. Brown received early termination of his probationary sentence and has advanced his education and maintained consistent employment in the field of education. Mr. Brown is also a veteran of the U.S. Navy, and during his service, he was awarded a National Defense Service Medal and several other medals, and awarded the following honorable discharge. Mr. Brown served in the U.S. Navy Reserve. He is described by colleagues as caring and compassionate. Okay. I want to know. Let me see here. Norman O'Neill Brown, Washington, D.C. Brown is a 56-year-old man who was convicted of a nonviolent drug offense. When he was 22 years old, Mr. Brown had been sentenced under current law, and today's sentencing practices, he is likely would have received a shorter sentence after serving 20 years in prison. President Obama commuted his sentence in 2015. Since then, Mr. Brown has worked with several nonprofit organizations, including those focused on rehabilitation, reentry, and justice impact youth. Mr. Brown volunteered at several national and community-based organizations that help support incarcerating former incarcerated people and serve as board member for a nonprofit dedicated to sentencing reform. Family members and colleagues describe Mr. Brown as a man of grace and integrity and exceptional human being. So that's what they say. He's an exceptional human being, huh? I tell you, boy. I tell you. So, I don't know. They should have a race of these guys, man. I really think so. There should be a race on this one, man. There should be a race. These are all the people that I'm trying to go down and see here. Let me see the names. Commuted the sentence of the following. Like, come on, man. I don't know, man. But I don't know. It's crazy. I don't see it, man. There's too many people in the world for Biden to touch us like he wanted to get our vote. Being honest. There are 1,500 people. This is 1,500 people on this list right here that he has commuted. And he's gave 39 pardons. President Biden now gave all these pardons and clemency, and I wonder if it was to the people, the people that he appealed to vote for him. And they have a list out, but this should be something that he should have wanted to emphasize to the people, of all the people that he gave clemency to, that he pardoned. But I don't know. 39 people got a pardon. 1,500 got their sentence commuted. Yeah. And I'm trying to see if any of these people are close to where he's from. Any Pennsylvania, Delaware, any of those people in there? Let's see. Are these Washington, Texas, Oregon, Florida? Okay. We got one from Bear, Delaware. Yes, we do. Patrice Shante Sellers is a 49-year-old woman who pleaded guilty to a nonviolent drug offense when she was in her 20s. If Ms. Sellers has been sentenced under current law and sentence practices, she likely would not have been prosecuted federally. Since her conviction, Ms. Sellers enrolled in school, earning multiple certificates and license. She gives back to her community by donating clothes, toiletries to transitional housing programs, that offers encouragement to residents. Community members describes Ms. Sellers as someone who goes above and beyond for others. And this is someone from Delaware that he did this for. That was shocking. She's 49. You got Wisconsin, Grooveport, Ohio, Illinois, Minnesota, Texas, Portville, New York, Denver, Colorado, Columbia, South Carolina. Arlington, Texas. Maxwell, Nebraska. Arlington, Tennessee. Yeah, man. So, this is a long list, too. I just wish they would say who was African American and who wasn't. Honestly. It's a long ass list, you hear me? It's a long ass list. National Security Communications Advisors. Yeah, it's a long ass list. Ronnie Wilson. Yeah. Okay. And that's who so Biden's clemency for convicted fraudster met outrage. Yeah, let's look at this one, because I think this was the world was upset about. Let me see. Yeah, the world was upset about the lady that got a part. Let me see. See here, hold on. Biden's clemency for convicted fraudster met with outrage, slap in the face. So they were upset that clemency for who stole millions in her small Illinois town to live a luxury lifestyle. She stole millions. Let's see what they say with this one right here. Let's see, hold up. We're going to check this out, y'all.
Did you know that?
Hold on. They get through this damn commercial. We're going to check this one out. Skip the ad. Let's see what we got here, y'all.
Backlash after commuting the sentence of former Dixon, Illinois comptroller Rita Crundwell, who stole nearly $54 million from that town, making it the largest municipal embezzlement scandal in U.S. history. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre following the commutation announcement.
I think this announcement, the statement from the president, this announcement today that we're making, nearly 1,500 people getting this their commutation. I think it's important. I think it's important about second chances, giving people second chances, and so that's what the president certainly is going to continue to focus on. I think today, I think it's a good day for many of those folks who deserve that second chance and who have proven to be able to take that on.
So is it a good day? That part is up for debate. Danny Langloss is a Dixon City manager and former Dixon police chief, and he joins me now. Danny, good morning to you. So you were the police chief at the time when Rita Crundwell was arrested. So tell us more about the crimes that she committed and why she received nearly the maximum sentence of 19 years and 7 months.
Yeah, good morning, Carly. Rita's crime absolutely shocks the conscious. Over a period of 20 years, she embezzled $54 million from the city of Dixon. At her sentencing on February 14, 2013, Judge Reinhold said that a significant prison sentence was essential to reestablish public trust and confidence. So what we've seen here over the last week is just unbelievable and really a complete betrayal by the federal criminal justice system.
Yeah, so a lot of people are responding to this commutation, including Congressman Darren LaHood, Republican from Illinois, who said leniency towards public officials who have abused their power only further erodes the integrity of our institutions. Congressman Eric Sorensen, a Democrat, said Crundwell getting off scot-free today is a load of BS. So bipartisan anger there. What is the reaction from your community?
Yeah, we're shocked, outraged, anger, disbelief, again, betrayal. This is a complete disservice to all the victims of her crime. and quite frankly, to the sanctity and the trust of the criminal justice system.
Yeah, well, it's not just Rita Cromwell. It also made a lot of news that President Biden included the commutation of the Cash for Kids judge, and getting the commutation. He's somebody who received millions of dollars in kickbacks for sending juveniles wrongfully to private prisons, detention facilities for juveniles. And when the White House was asked why, they said that they didn't look at the details of the individual cases. These people just fit the criteria of being on COVID-19 home confinement. Do you think that they should have looked at the details here?
Yeah, this is lazy governance, and it's really abuse of authority and power. We're outraged that Rita has been released, but all the work I've done as a police officer around protecting children, alternatives to detention, the impact of detention on children, to have this judge walk free, to have a day taken off his sentence, wow, they just really got this so wrong. So
really quickly, before we let you go, hopefully we can end on a high note. Tell us how Dixon is doing today.
Dixon's on the move. There's never been a better time to be in Dixon. Tragedy, crisis, failure, they don't define us. It's how we respond to that makes us who we are today. We've changed form of governments. We're in the city manager form. Tons of development, all kinds of great things happening in Dixon. It's a wonderful community, and we're just excited to capture the momentum we have and continue to move forward.
All right, Danny Langloss, thank you so much for teaching us more about this story and responding to it. We appreciate having you on. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah. She stole $53 million from the town and got her sentence commuted. But she did do a stretch, though. She had a 19-year bit. But, they pick and choose who they think deserves a second chance. I tell you that's how life go. They definitely do that. Yeah. They pick and choose who they say deserves a second chance. Real stuff. Oh, bye. Yes, they do. We're gonna see something here. Let me see. Hold up. Yeah, they pick and choose, man. They definitely do. And let me see here what they say about. Alright. Alright, let's see what they say. Hold up. Hold up. Alright, now. So. Alright. So we got Rayful Edmonds here, right? Rayful Edmonds did 35 years in prison. He was a drug kingpin out of D.C. And he was supposedly the one who introduced crack to D.C. And they said that he was a hustler on the street, but his rise to fame came when he was in jail. So Rayful Edmonds III, one of DC's most notorious drug dealers during the crack era, crack crisis in the 1980s, has died in federal custody. The Bureau of Prisons confirmed Tuesday he was 60 years old. Known as the king of cocaine, Edmonds was transferred from prison to community confinement only 5 months ago and was set to be released in November of next year after more than 35 years in federal custody. Edmonds oversaw a sprawling drug network that fueled the city's devastating crack epidemic, contributing to the dramatic rise in homicides and harming the lives of countless people. Armed enforcers wielding Uzi submachine guns protected Edmonds' territory as he ran an operation linked to at least 30 murders. Although none were directly attributed to him during the 80s, law enforcement said Edmond was making up to $2 million each week and moving up to 1,700 pounds of cocaine per month. God damn. His household name in D.C. living a lavish lifestyle included sponsoring local basketball tournaments and frequent trips to Las Vegas for high-profile boxing matches. Edmond was arrested in April of '89 and had been serving a life sentence in prison without parole for drug distribution and was sent to a maximum security prison in Pennsylvania. He continued to run his distribution network from inside the prison. When he was caught, Edmond received an additional 30 years. After his arrest, Edmond cooperated with the government for 17 years, helping them prosecute over 100 drug dealers. Let me see here. His D.C. life sentence was reduced 20 years to 20 years in 2021. And the additional 30 years came from sentencing out of Pennsylvania. However, the Bureau of Prisons said he got his sentence reduction of 288 months, which he served. The Bureau of Prisons did not release details about the cause of Edmond's death. That's because he's in witness protection. Yeah. Until somebody that was in that halfway house with him comes out and says that they seen him fall out, we can't believe it. I ain't gonna lie. Let me see here. Alright, let me see here. Yeah, we can't fall for that. Rayful Edmonds III, who oversees a massive DC cocaine ring in the 80s, is scheduled to appear. This was in May of 2019. By video hookup or telephone Tuesday in a hearing in which the federal judge will consider reducing Edmonds' life sentence. The 54-year-old Edmond is serving life without parole for drug distribution, with an extra 30 years tacked on for selling drugs. In February, federal prosecutors in the district filed a motion in court requesting early release for Edmond because of the help he provided with the government fighting against illegal drugs since he's been in prison. So, the federal government wanted him to be released. Ain't that something? He worked with them so good that they wanted him to be released. Now that's deep. God damn. And let me see here. Hold up. It said filed a motion. Said Rayful Edmond earlier convicted in both district and court in Pennsylvania for drug-related charges, sentenced to life behind bars, but years of cooperation have led the prosecutors to ask the court to reduce his life sentence. So, for him to be cooperating for years, he had to be befriending the drug dealers that was coming into the jail, I guess, and cooperating on their cases, because I'm sure he told while he was doing whatever he was doing in there, but for him to do it for years, He was befriending people and cooperating. And that's why I say, man, you know, the street codes, they only apply to the people that want to apply it. In all actuality, they really don't apply to everybody. It's just the ones that want to apply the street code. In his situation, he felt that coming home was more important, even though he only lived 5 months on the outside world in the halfway house. But hey, he was in jail telling on everybody the whole time. There is no street code, man. Think about this, man. All right, so the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. filed the motion Friday detailing how the man credited with sparking one of the city's largest and most destructive narcotic distribution operation has helped solve numerous drug crimes and cold cases throughout the years, as well as bringing about prison reform by helping to end drug ring operations ran from inside the prison. Prosecutors say Edmond also provided background information in several narcotic trafficking investigations, which led to over 100 convictions. In the motion, prosecutors also made clear the impact of Edmond's role in the violent crimes in the drug trade during his time on the streets and behind bars, which led to the distribution of hundreds of kilograms of cocaine and millions of dollars of profit. Once evidence relevant to resentencing for Edmond, who is now 54, is complete review, prosecutors will then submit a sentencing recommendation. Yeah. So he cooperated so much that they were willing to commute his sentence down, and he was only out of jail for 5 months and died. Maybe he should have stayed in jail. He only get out for 5 months and died, and that's why I say it has to be witness protection. I really say that he has to be in witness protection, and they made it look like he died. Unless somebody in that halfway house comes out and does an interview and says that they personally seen this man fall out, we can't believe it. Because he was an informant. They said he got over 100 guys while in prison. So the guys that were coming to prison, they must have been talking to this man about their case, and they didn't know that he was an informant. They didn't know he was an informant, and they get to talking to this man about their case, right? Telling this man details about their case. And we already know them street rules don't apply to people that they don't want it to apply to. They only apply to the ones that want to uphold it. But there's no value in them street rules, man. Not at all. If you think, like Terrence Gangster Williams, same type of shit. These guys, they want to come home. Everybody talk that Willie Bobo talk, that they willing to sit in jail for life, right? Until they get an opportunity to be able to cooperate and tell. Most guys will, man. If they got the opportunity. Those so-called street codes and morals go out the window ASAP, man. Let me see here. Those street codes and morals literally go out the window in these type of situations. I ain't even gonna lie. Let me see here, man. Yeah. They go out the window, man. Same way, they said he was implicated to be connected to 30 murders. 30 murders. So, yeah. Let's see what the news here say. I got the news here. Hold up.
24 a sports
Yeah, you got the news here.
star. Rayful Edmond was a notorious drug kingpin. He thrived during the crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s, which spiked the city's murder rate so high, D.C. became known as the murder capital of the nation. Edmond spent 35 years in prison. He was released 4 months ago to a halfway house in Miami. At the time of his release, News 4's Paul Wagner brought us this report on Edmond's impact on D.C.
The release from prison came as a bit of a surprise. Edmond is now out in part because in the 90s, he cooperated with the government after the FBI learned he was making large drug deals with the Columbia cartel from his federal prison cell in Pennsylvania. In 1994, he flipped and became a snitch. Court records show for the next 20 years, Edmond provided information to the feds that led to the convictions of at least 100 people. Here in D.C. during the late 80s, he ran his cocaine operation from a house in Northeast where a young police recruit successfully infiltrated the gang. In 2019, News 4's Jackie Benson spoke with the undercover officer, now retired.
I was in there for like 3 days and got asked, did I want to do undercover work?
The undercover was known to the gang as Jimmy, who remembers cocaine shipments being delivered by the truckload.
And a guy sitting on the back with a Uzi, with 2 Uzis.
At one point, Edmond became close with some of Georgetown University's top basketball players, and Coach John Thompson met with Edmond and asked him to leave his players alone.
Rayful respected that because Rayful was a big basketball fan.
The crack epidemic had the district in a vice grip for years, with countless murders linked to it. In the district, Paul Wagner, News 4.
Now, the News 4 I-Team's Tracy Wilkins joins us in studio here now. Tracy, you grew up here in Washington, D.C. So for people who are more recent transplants to this area or even younger people, can you sort of break down the impact that Rayful Edmond had on our area even more?
Well, so according to the prosecutors, he was operating some 60% of the crack cocaine that was moving throughout the District of Columbia. That is a large amount of drugs coming into this small city, right? And he had, at the time of his arrest, one of the most profitable drug operations in the nation, right? So what that looked like here was, I was raised in Prince George's County. My maternal grandmother lived in Northeast D.C., 42nd and Benning Road, just a couple of blocks up from Minnesota Avenue and near the shrimp boat. And I remember growing up and feeling just a feeling of safety in that community, being able to play and you know, do whatever there. And I also remember the change in 86, 87, 88, when the community just was different. Apartment complexes where working people lived became crack houses, you know, and the feeling of the community shifted. And I think that that happened throughout the district and a lot of places where black people lived in D.C., that there was just this, it felt like living in a war zone, and all of the murders and all of the shooting and all of the things that were happening. And so it was a very difficult time. And I think that if you talk to these folks who have survived, because Edmond didn't do this alone. He had a network of dealers who he operated with, and there were a lot of people who were making money off of that operation. They lost, in addition to, for those who survived, a lot of time, right? Because of the war on drugs and these extended years that people spent in prison, and how that's impacted this generation, in addition to the addiction, the people who died, the people who were incarcerated. So many kids and grandkids have been left without loved ones. So that is the legacy, right? And Edmond apologized for the decisions he made when he was, you know, in his early 20s. He went to prison like 22, 23.
Yeah, well, you talk about his age. I want to bring up, in this morning's news meeting, you were talking about America's fascination with sort of, you know, gangsters, and the impact that he had on the area, as you mentioned. I mean, he died at the age of about 60, and the impact that he had in such a short amount of time in his youth in the city.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we glorify crime and the underworld, but we tend to do that, right? That's just an American thing, right? But in this instance, we are living in the after effects of how all of these decisions that these young men made have impacted the city. A lot of them who are now trying to atone for what they did then, and you know, and if they had a second chance, would have made a different decision. There was an insane amount of money to be made, and a lot of people who wanted a part in that, and we are still dealing with the repercussions. So for people who weren't here to see D.C. before Edmond, D.C. after Edmond, it's two different cities in a lot of ways. There was always hard drugs. We always had heroin. There was always a market. This was just much more controlled and much more organized than we'd seen before.
You know, it's reach being named the drug capital of the U.S. I mean, I didn't grow up here, but we heard about it in Indiana, and it was like, I don't know if we want to go to Washington, D.C. It's a scary place. So, I mean, when you think about even that.
The reach
you know,
had.
Yeah, the reach.
Yeah,
So.
but folks are working to turn that around. And
Indeed.
again, including a lot of the folks who worked with him are also trying to make that better and heal these communities that have been devastated.
Tracy, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's still going on. It's just that it's a different crew of people doing it. So I don't think drugs will ever stop going through because it's bigger people making money off the stuff coming here. So, and I really don't think Rayful Edmond is dead. I think that he's just in witness protection because, like they said, he was in federal custody cooperating for 20 years. They said he started cooperating in 1994 and he did it for 20 years. And all the cooperation that he done is what got him out of jail because he got a life sentence. I don't understand how guys were coming to jail, and people, I do understand. See, people go, when they get locked up, they start thinking that the other people that might have that type of reputation of being on the street are someone to confide into. And this man capitalized off of that. The people that confided in him and started talking about their case, he got him locked up. He made sure that the conviction was solid because of them telling him about what they were doing. And they said he did it for 20 years. 20 years of that? God damn. Rayful Edmond. It's deep. Yeah, let me see. Hold up. Yeah. I really don't think he died. Me, honestly, I don't think he died. I just think that they have him in witness protection. Being as though that he told on so many people from the cartel. And he might have been already getting death threats because he got out in July, right? So he probably was already getting death threats. And, you know, they wanted to go ahead and hide him out ASAP. But we're going to see if somebody from the jail comes out and says they observed this man dying from an alleged heart attack. And we do know that the food inside of the jails, you know, give you high blood pressure. But this was the easiest way to make it like he's disappearing. 35 years in jail and was out 5 months and got a heart attack. Yeah, that's a deep one there. And this was in let me see, hold on. The basketball coach, John Thompson. Yeah. He told Rayful Edmonds to stay away from his players. He said, in Washington, D.C. in the 1980s, crossing drug kingpin, Rayful Edmonds didn't usually end well. Largely credited with introducing crack cocaine to the U.S. Capitol, Edmonds' 150-man network was allegedly making $300 million a year, moving tons of drugs. In the early 20s, Edmonds also loved playing basketball and watching. let's say here. Coached by John Thompson, the Hoyas, led by Patrick Ewing, won the national championship in 1984 and became the international brand. There were even bigger deals locally, and Edmond, who was one of the city's biggest playground players, loved to sit courtside and mix it up. But as the Drug Enforcement Administration began to zero in on the flashy, good-looking trafficker, Thompson wanted to put an end to any association between the team and the underworld figure. Most concerning to the coaches were revelation two of his players, NBA-bound Century Alonzo Mourning and DC native John Turner, had been spotted hanging out with Edmonds and playing for the playground team. So Thompson, who had just returned from coaching America to a win in the bronze medal game against Australia in '88 Olympics, put word out on the street he wanted to see Edmond. Not long after, a man linked with the deaths of more than 30 people, earning DC's nickname the murder capital of the United States, knocked on the door of his office. That's John Thompson with AI. Thompson was an imposing figure himself, standing 208 centimeters tall. He'd been a star high school basketball player in D.C., being drafted by the Boston Celtics and winning NBA championships 1965 and 1966. After coaching a high school level, he took his towering presence to Georgetown, where he ended up coaching for 27 seasons in the Hall of Fame career. But intimidating young players, imposing coaches and referees, and starring eyeball to eyeball with a man like Edmond, who was a fugitive at the time, were two markedly different things. Still, the coach had a point to make. Stay away from my players. I didn't get into his background or conduct and interrogation. That's for the police. Thompson later described, I tried to make sure he knew the goal and objectives of my kids, and I tried to make it very clear to him that if I didn't want anything going on with my kids. I had heard rumors and interview, but it's still an obligation if I hear of something going on to check on it. Check it out. I figured he played basketball. He loves basketball. Let me talk to this man. My thing is basketball. Let me try to confront the problem immediately. The message was heard loud and clear. Ray supposedly listened intently and agreed. Mourning said, all I know is that was the end between the two of us. Ray never tried to talk to me again. So he listened to the coach. Coach told him stay away from my players, and he did. Thompson was forced to explain the meeting with Edmond when Edmond was arrested a few months afterwards. Yeah, see, now the feds want to understand, why was you linking up with this big-time guy? I don't understand this expression of amazement, said Thompson, about the four surrounding their sit-down. We cannot close ourselves off from the whole of society. We cannot isolate ourselves, seal ourselves from people. We better start confronting these problems. We better understand we incorporate into these problems. This isn't them or they. The people involved with drugs and being killed are our children. It's not like somebody crawled out of some hole who is so different from us. He also separately admonished Mourning and Turner. He said, you're an embarrassment to our school and to the program. Mourning recalled later. Alonzo Mourning said, that's what he said to him. Wow. You're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting the program. You're hurting every player who ever came here and built this program with their blood, sweat, and tears. Edmond was convicted of numerous offenses related to drug trafficking and sentenced to life. Thompson finished coaching in 1999. He watched the program at Georgetown go full circle when Ewing became head coach in 2017. Before the legendary mentor died Tuesday, age 78. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. What was this right here? What was this put out? Let's see. This was 2020. Yeah, this was September 2020. And John Thompson says, stay away from my players, man. I don't want you nowhere near my players. And this was in the 80s that Ray had the crack jumping. And if he didn't tell, he would have never got out. Yeah, if he ain't tell, he would have never got out, man. These dudes in the street, they don't expect the boss to tell. And that's the things you got to worry about in the street, though. When you in them streets, you got to worry about the plug telling on you, too. It ain't just you worrying about the niggas that's in the street. You got to worry about the plug, the niggas in the streets, and you got to worry about the police. So you got a lot of different situations you got to worry about when you out in the streets. And guys were going to the feds thinking, you know, because who he was, that he wasn't going to tell. And for the plug to deal with this man from prison, you know, he put another level of trust in him. And that's a level of trust you can't put in nobody. The streets are always going to crush you. No matter what. They're always going to crush you. You're on borrowed time in the streets. You know, not a lot of people get to make it out of that lifestyle without severe consequences. You know, it's a selective few in life that are able to separate themselves. And, you know, you got to go cold turkey. I was watching something, was that yesterday, what Jeezy was talking about when he got his album, his first album got leaked. He was talking about how he was in the streets and how he went cold turkey, and then he was almost feeling like he might have to go back to the streets because somebody leaked his album. But it's the level of trust in the street is crazy. Yeah, AJB, you know, these guys think that because, you know, somebody's name and, you know, the street code and ethics that these guys won't tell. They don't want to do life. You know, you see, and it was murders. They said 30 murders connected to Rayful Edmond. Just like Alpo. They had Alpo out there. He had 14 murders connected to him. And 35 years, Rayful came home, died in 5 months. Alpo came home, I think he was on about 2-3 years and died. And, you know, these guys witness protection. But I think Rayful Edmond is still alive. Until we get a bigger confirmation from somebody that was in this halfway house that literally seen him have a heart attack. He told on 100 people for 20 years. So you sure he did a lot of testifying. And the cartels want him dead. So it was the easiest way to make it look good was to make it look like he died. And that's what I think. I really think they made it look like he died. Put it all over the news. Change his identity. Give him a new social security number. And let him go on. Yeah. You know, these guys think that, you know, when you go to jail, you run into a guy that is supposedly the plug at one point in time, that they can relate to you. And all this guy was doing was thinking, like, I got to get out this life sentence. So he was an informant inside of the federal penitentiary for 20 years. And it's deep. Told his way out of a life sentence, came home for 5 months and died, as they say. But like I say, I think that they got him somewhere in the witness protection system, making sure that, you know, the world looks at it as if he's died. So you never know. Let me see here. Let me see. It said, who was Rayful Edmonds? A kingpin who ran the DC drug market from the 80s who died this week. Yeah. Let me see. Hold on. Empire. Let me see. Hold up. Diamond had became a street legend. Few years in DC based director. Let me see. Hold on. Hold on. Let me see. What is this right here? I didn't know published. Rayful Edmonds. Hold up. Let me see. Hold up. Let me see. Rayful Edmonds III, one of the biggest drug dealers in D.C. history, died at 60 suddenly Tuesday evening at the halfway house in Florida. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, sources told that Edmond had a heart attack. He spent 35 years in prison, most of the time divided between maximum security and witness protection, and he died just 4 months after he was transferred to the halfway house. If you go back April 15th, 1889, who could have predicted such an outcome? It said the Empire at just 24. Now let me see what's going on at this one right here. Hold up. Empire at 24. Hold up.
I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't a citizen. I was just...
Hold on. They got this music. I ain't playing no music. Hold up. Yeah. I can't play no music, y'all. I want to play it, but I can't play the music. They gonna mess my live up. I messed my whole live up, man. Hold up. Alright, let me see. Edmond became a street legend in but a few years in DC. Based movie director Kirk Fraser would make a movie about him. Hip-hop artists invoked his name in their lyrics. Young street kids, not even born when Edmonds ruled the streets, claim to be his offsprings or made in his likeness. Edmond, when he was arrested at the age 24, had become DC's biggest, most successful, and feared crack dealer. He was a DC native who grew up on the streets of Northeast. He was smart, a really good basketball player, charismatic, with a quick laugh and constant ear-to-ear smile. Let me see. Like a lot of young drug dealers around him, Edmond wasn't poor. His mother and his father had government jobs, but by the age of 9, he had been exposed to the drug life by his father, Rayful Edmond II. The drug business was equal opportunity and a chance to leap over the rest of the working class into the land of the richest. The people who got hooked on drugs were frowned upon, but the young drug dealers on the corners, the drug bosses, and their lieutenants were often considered the pillars of the neighborhood. The influence of the drug money into the neighborhoods brought groceries, fancy designer clothes, expensive cars, and travel, teams, uniforms, and the best seats at local college and professional sporting events. Drug dealers had cash on hand day and night. They were the ATM before the ATM. The young drug dealers often had choice of girlfriends too. Many of them, like Edmonds, left babies behind who had been reared by young mothers and grandparents after young fathers went to prison. Edmond left 2 sons when he went away to prison on a multiple life sentences. By any measures, as a young drug dealer, Edmond exceeded all expectations by the time he was 22. Investigators say he employed 150 people, many of them juveniles who worked the street corners as crack pushers and looked out on guards for lurking plainclothes cops. Let me see if I can play this without my shit messing up. Let's see. Hold up. We're going to see if this got music. If this got music, negative.
Running DC's biggest crack ring. Ruben got too close to the story, way too close, scoring crack on the corner after he'd filed his stories about the real cost of the drug epidemic.
For me as a reporter, covering this was like being on a perpetual adrenaline rush.
Couple of questions. Ruben Castaneda. He was hired by the Washington Post as a crime reporter in the late 1980s. It didn't take long for the Los Angeles native to make a name for himself, covering the crack epidemic that was averaging about 400 murders per year in the nation's capital.
The crack epidemic was tremendously harmful, devastating to neighborhoods like this and others, primarily in the eastern half of the city.
It was while he was working the city streets by night, day, and weekends that Ruben, the journalist, became just another working junkie, slipping in and out of dangerous neighborhoods and alleys, buying and using crack. He later wrote about his secret life in a memoir, S Street Rising, Crack, Murder, and Redemption in D.C.
A little more than 48 hours after their quadruple killing inside the nightclub, it was business as usual on the block. Champagne made the buy and strolled back to the car.
Who is Champagne?
Champagne was what was known as a strawberry, a woman who traded sex for drugs. She was my primary conduit to making drug buys.
The fear of being recognized as a reporter for a Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper, or being targeted in a police undercover sting, or being robbed and killed on the street was no match for the lure of crack. And there were plenty of drug operations run by the likes of Rayful Edmond, standing ready to meet the demand.
I made buys on my own during my off time. There were probably dozens of Rayful Edmonds in terms of young men who ran blocks, sold a lot of drugs, were responsible for high levels of violence.
What had been lost on Ruben was the story of what was happening to the innocent men, women, and children who had to live on the crack streets. People who dared not be on the block when the drug dealers and violence took over.
It was just an awful way for them to live, and through no fault of their own. They just happened to live in neighborhoods that were taken over by drug dealers.
Let me ask you this, Rayful Edmond, should he be allowed to go free after 30 years behind bars?
There were huge numbers of young, primarily black men, some Latino men, who were incarcerated for decades under really stringent crack cocaine laws. Many of them were not violent offenders, and I think it's right that many of them get out. With Rayful Edmond, it's hard for me to say because police and FBI agents at the time said he was perhaps the major drug dealer in D.C., responsible not just for selling a lot of cocaine, crack, but also much of the violence. But I will say this, after Rayful Edmond was taken down and taken off the street, that had zero impact on the availability of drugs in D.C. or on the level of violence that I could see.
Now, they said even though they took Rayful Edmond off the street, the crack still kept going. Now it says they plan.
The Tampa Bay Lightning are set for another home matchup against a team.
Hold up, cut that out. They say they planned escape routes down the alleys, through borders, up row houses when the cops jumped out their vehicles, depending on which federal investigators was telling the story. The Edmond Drug Organization was grossing $200 million per week, or $300 million annually. Ruben Castaneda was a Washington Post member who was signed to cover the crack epidemic when he became hooked on crack. He described his work at the time as a roller coaster. For me as a reporter covering, it was like being on a perpetual adrenaline rush. Castaneda said there was non-stop drug dealing, slingers on the street 24/7. You had violence break out as young men and drug and dealers fought for turf, so it was not safe to live in these blocks. Castaneda, who wrote a book, S Street Rising, about his own drug involvement, said Edmond wasn't the only big drug dealer in D.C. His arrest had little impact on the city's bustling drug trade. And I bet, there were previous dozens of Rayful Edmonds in terms of young men who ran blocks and sold a lot of drugs, responsible for high-level violence, Castaneda said. The bulk of the crack cocaine demand came from working stiff of all colors, from the city and the suburbs. They started out as recreational users, moving to cheap crack from marijuana and PCP. Their vehicles crowned Hanover, Florida Ave, Orleans, and the Trinidad neighborhoods by day and night. It was a very violent time, fueled by a crack epidemic and vicious turf battles. D.C. became known as the murder capital. Edmond was never charged with murder, but he wasn't clean by any measure. A drug business this big needed an army to protect the enterprise, which eventually covered nearly a third of the District of Columbia. At least 30 homicides were tied to Edmond's organization. Police were unprepared, overmatched, and caught in the middle. Lyle Duckett was a lieutenant in the D.C. Department famed Delta Unit. He said police in the beginning were no match for the crack and violence that came with it. Keeping it real, we were overwhelmed when the crack epidemic hit. The D.C. Police Department wasn't ready for it. Duckett said we had to upgrade. We went from revolver to semi-automatic, and we had to go through training processes which involved tactics. An outsider might ask, how did Edmond's drug operation exist for roughly half a decade without drawing attention from local law enforcement? An easy answer is that some D.C. police officers assigned to the 5th District were childhood friends and associates with Edmond, either looked the other way or, in one report case, acted as bodyguards for Edmond in the operation. God damn. So he had the cops on payroll. Or, at or near the top of Edmond's operation was his mother, an aunt, 2 sisters, a brother-in-law, and a close childhood friend like Tony Lewis. Edmond wasn't low-key. He and his close associates were living large and in a plain view from the beginning. They liked flashy clothes, jewelry, expensive cars. There were cash junkets to Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and the West Coast. And Edmond could ball. He loved basketball and was often spotted at Georgetown Hoya games. His childhood friend, John Turner, who played for Coach John Thompson, who eventually sat down with Edmond and asked him to stay away from the Hoya program, and his star player Alonzo Mourning in particular, it was one of the most recounted moments in Edmond's story. Edmond, obliged by his continued friendship with Turner, saw the 6'8" player eventually lead the Hoya program. Edmond's big drug supplier had been a L.A. dealer with connections to Colombia drug cartels. The beginning of the end of the empire when the D.C. mules were arrested while picking up drugs in Los Angeles. Ooh. Then on April 15, 1989, a 43-count indictment was issued and Edmond was arrested with 28 others. Their trials were held under the tightest security by scores of deputy U.S. Marshals. The defendants were separated from the rest of the public by bulletproof plexiglass. Damn. Yeah, you already know they don't got no cameras in them federal courts. So these was drawings from back then. They had them separated. God damn. Edmond, Lewis, and others were not held in D.C. jails like most federal prisoners. They were locked up miles away in Quantico Marine Base and flown into D.C. every morning before trial. Damn. Damn. They was flown into D.C. every morning? Oh, yeah. You already know. Shh. That's deep. 100 witnesses testified. Many of them were former Edmond gang members who turned state witnesses. In the end, Edmond was convicted and sentenced to 2 life terms in prison, and that should have been the end of his drug running days. But DC crack kingpin was hardly ready for retirement. He was sentenced to the maximum security prisons in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Within days of his arrival, the now infamous DC drug dealer was introduced to a fellow inmate, Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco. They called him Chico, a convicted drug felon. It turns out that Chico was the cocaine royalty and son of Griselda Blanco. Okay, it's getting deeper. Also known as the godmother of the Colombian drug underworld and founding member of the notorious Medellin drug cartel. Okay, so Rayful Edmonds got plugged in with Griselda's son. Chico was eventually released from prison to return to Colombia, and his horse ranch 60 Minutes report that when Edmonds' drug operation from behind the prison walls took off, the DC kingpin was eventually caught again and given another 30 years in prison. That was when Edmonds turned snitching. Oh, okay. Here we go. Agreed to help the government identify as many as 100 and other drug dealers in exchange for his mother's release from prison. She had begun serving a 24-year sentence. Ooh. So let me see what this say here. Hold up. Let's see if we can. Did I play this one right here? Hold up. Let me see. Did I play this one right here?
Okay, we're back with more on our WUSA 9 special on DC's crack kingpin, Rayful. He's petitioned the court.
That's kind of driven what I've done professionally since then.
Yeah, case overturned. You're good.
So the case was overturned, but I still have a criminal record which I've had to deal with, and that's kind of driven what I've done professionally since then.
Yeah. Let me ask you both this question. What about those people who say, okay, Rayful Edmond has been in for 30 years. He wasn't charged with, wasn't convicted of murder. Okay, he was a big-time drug dealer. Okay, a lot of other big-time drug dealers have been released, but it's Rayful Edmond. He's in witness protection now. Would he need witness protection if the judge decided to let him go?
So I think if Rayful was to come home, he definitely, because he's in witness protection, wouldn't come home to Washington, D.C. But I think that in terms of, evaluating whether or not he's given relief, it's worth it to consider, the value that we as a society place on the help that he's given to the authorities. But beyond that, and far more important than that, is what he and others have done to help people never to go to prison, and who are in prison never to come back.
Sharon, I know from talking to a lot of people that were associated with Rayful Edmond, very close to him, they are back and they're mainstreamed and they're doing okay and don't want to be bothered. Right. A lot of them did not want to be quoted by name in this. Would you be concerned for Rayful Edmond's safety?
I will totally be concerned, and I did mention that to you prior, Bruce. I would be concerned for his safety for a couple of reasons. One, he has helped the prosecution. He has potentially put others in jail, and
he's a snitch.
He's considered a snitch, and I think that, like what you're saying, he would not be able to come back to D.C. He would have to go somewhere, probably even get some kind of facial distortion, because everybody knows his pictures.
Quick question: criminal justice reform. Did it mean for Rayful Edmond, to benefit from criminal justice reform that's gotten bipartisan support here, get the non-violent offenders out?
So I think it's far beyond Rayful. I think that, just to my point earlier, it's about people like his co-defendant, Tony Lewis Sr., who's done tremendous work to help people that are in prison never to come back, and even kids that are coming up in these neighborhoods not to go to prison. It's about the idea of giving people a second chance. The mayor always says that D.C. is a second, third, and fourth chance city.
Sharon Wise, Brian Ferguson, thank you both very much.
Thank
I'm
you for having
back
us,
with
Bruce.
some final thoughts right after this.
Yeah. So, from what we see, I really think they might have, like they said, changed his facial structure, said that he died. And this is what I think, so that they can change his old identity. You got to understand that this guy told on the drug cartel. They never forgetting that. And he was linked in with Griselda Blanco, her son. So I don't think they're going to just let him be free. Somebody's going to be looking for him. So I think the government changed his identity and made sure that he's concealed. So, they say here, despite the crimes, support grew for Edmond's early release from prison. In February 2019, let me see here, federal prosecutors asked the U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan for Edmond's early release. Prosecutors said that Edmond helped them understand the drug trade for 20 years while cooperating with authorities from federal prison. Sullivan, at the time, said the case would be the most challenging decision for my judicial career. So, this is the judge that made the decision to let Edmonds go free. The judge asked for the community comments to help him make his decision, and people were able to send comments to the D.C. Attorney General. People that WSA 9 talked to in 2019, both in person and on social media, were mixed in their opinion. Retired Lieutenant Duckett told WUSA 9 in 2019 that at first he couldn't believe that the government wants to release the infamous drug dealer, but has since reached another conclusion in looking closer at the case. There's still redemption to be done, and that's going to be when he gets out. You hear me? So, man, we have to wait and see on that. My prayers is that he's true to his word, and he's going to continue to do good work that he's done while he's incarcerated. Duckett said. Olivia Chase, a recovering drug addict, says she's lost everything on the streets during the Edmond reign, including a stepson. Now she is an activist raising a grandson. She recalled how crack made her insane, but she did believe Edmond should be released. Let me see. Of course, many lives have been affected. Many people have lost a lot of things, including their own lives. But I think if he has an opportunity, as I had, to recover from the lifestyle, then he should be given the opportunity to recover from hopeless malady. Okay, Chase said. A retired parole officer who declined to be interviewed on camera said 9 young men in his caseload were eventually killed. He said everyone had been employed by Edmonds, and he told WUSA 9 in 2019 that he blames him for their deaths. He opposes to the release. Okay, so he opposes to the release. Let's see what this thing say here. Hold up. Let's see what we got here. Come on now. Let's see what we got here. Hold up. So they had somebody opposing to his release. Let's see what we got here, though, y'all.
Used to prison.
What up?
Crack cocaine. The government says Edmond has helped prosecutors close scores of drug cases and put as many as 100 other dealers behind bars. Our sources say Rayful Edmond is now being held in a federal low-security facility somewhere in the U.S. His exact whereabouts not part of the public record because he is in the witness protection program. Edmond in the 1980s helped fuel the crack cocaine epidemic here in the nation's capital. His organization brought Colombian cocaine to D.C. via Los Angeles. Prosecutors say the Edmond organization was easily bringing in $2 million per week in drug sales. Now, he's already served about 30 years in prison. He was about 22 when he went in. He's now almost 54. New documents from U.S. District Court here in D.C. show that federal judge Emmett Sullivan now has the case. The federal prosecutor's motion to shorten Rayful Edmond's sentence. But Judge Sullivan has given prosecutors only until March 22nd to determine how the court will hear from victims and family members. He also apparently wants to hear from the district's elected attorney general, Carl Racine. Regardless of what the judge decides, the decision will be a big deal for those who lived in D.C. during the height of Edmond's crimes. There is a passionate conversation happening on my Facebook page right now where opinions are mixed. Jacqueline writes, people deserve second chances. Hopefully he can teach the youngsters not to do what he did. But Hassan says he should be put under the jail. Joining me right now tonight to help sort all this out is A. Scott Bolden, a noted D.C. criminal attorney and a former federal prosecutor. Scott, how does this strike you? The request by the governor?
This is really rare. In 31 years, and I'm a former prosecutor, as you said, I've never seen this done before, but the government essentially is asking for the judge to resentence Rayful Edmond because of his years of cooperation. And know now that in a parole hearing, you would normally see this in a parole hearing because this is when these issues would come up. But he doesn't get parole. Remember, he's got life without parole, and he's got another 30 years tacked on for selling drugs out of a penitentiary in Pennsylvania. And so this is a mechanism for the federal government to allow him or allow a judge to say whether his sentence should be reduced or not.
What about the timing, though? I mean, he's already been in 30 years. They're doing it now as opposed to 10 years ago, as opposed to 15 years ago. Why now? Can we read anything into that? Other than the fact that maybe the government feels he should be let out.
Well, maybe. He's been cooperating for quite some time, and 10 years is a really long time to cooperate for some drug dealers and really revamping the prison system. Because remember, the 30 years he got was for selling drugs out of the penitentiary, and so he's been working with them on how to revamp that to prevent others in the future from doing that. Secondly, 30 years is a long time. They don't have another mechanism to do it, and that's why Judge Emmett Sullivan is trying to hear from other parties as to whether he should get an early release, whatever that year is. But think about it if you're Rayful Edmonds. He's been cooperating. He can't go anywhere but up because he's got life without parole. So maybe the judge gives him parole. Maybe the judge says, okay, I'm going to reduce the sentences to 10 years. There's no guarantee he's going to get out, let alone come back to Washington.
The judge has the authority to let Rayful Edmond walk right now or to keep him behind bars for another whatever period of time he says.
The judge has that authority, but I wouldn't, and for your listening audience, I wouldn't be looking at Rayful Edmonds getting out of jail and coming back to Washington, D.C. He's in the witness protection program. He's going to continue to be in that witness protection program, and that's why the judge wants to hear from the community to see exactly what his decision should be, because they're the ones that are going to be most affected by his decision.
You've worked both sides of these kind of cases, okay? So is the judge going to be swayed, or are judges normally swayed by what they hear from victims and family members of victims, even though Rayful Edmond has done all these things that the government says he's done in his favor?
Well, I think Judge Sullivan, who I've appeared before a number of times, is going to listen to everyone, including Carl Racine. If Carl Racine decides to respond to that, he'll also look back at the case. I mean, listen, $2 million a week for crack cocaine being on the streets. You got a lot of victims. You got a lot of murders. You got a lot of impact that's really not good impact. Conspiracy to distribute. But the one thing that comes to mind with Rayful Edmond is when he was on the streets, he was cutting deals, and it seems like he's still cutting deals in the federal penitentiary.
Okay. Hey, Scott Bolton, thanks a lot. Good information.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's why I think they're acting like he's dead right now, because he was cooperating inside the federal penitentiary for 20 years and got 100 people. And think about that. It's people that was connected to those people that are still alive. I think they said he cooperated from 94 to 2014. And I guess by then everybody knew that he was a snitch and that was known, so it was nothing left for him to do. Nobody was confiding in him as they went to jail. And it all came out. So we're going to see now. It says on social media, sources of people came down on both sides of the argument. Some said Edmond could be a positive influence, like others returning citizens. Paul Weinstock, a childhood friend and later Edmond associate, served 23 years in prison when his drug organization was brought down. He currently mentors juvenile offenders and employs returning citizens in the several legitimate businesses that he owns. Weinstock said in 2019 that Edmond and his former lieutenant, Tony Lewis, should be given credit for how they served some 30 years in prison and should be allowed to make amends in the communities they once helped destroy. Lewis was also released early in March 2023 because of Trump administration era. Policy focused on fair sentences, rehabilitation, and second chances. In 2021, 2 years after the hearing, Sullivan granted a reduced sentence. Let me see here. Hold up. Final thought. Let's see what they say here.
His kingpin Rayful Edmond, citing his cooperation, which ranged from assisting in the conviction of extremely violent individuals to assisting in the conviction of ongoing narcotics trafficking to assisting in the institution of prison reforms. Now, many people who lived in D.C. during the 80s and early 90s feel some kind of way about that, as I did. Yet, as much as finger pointing is happening with regards to this case, this is much deeper than Rayful Edmond. Despite everything that he was convicted of, it's easier to point to Rayful and ignore the circumstances that created the crack epidemic here in Washington, D.C., because every major city had their version of Rayful Edmond, from Freeway Ricky Ross in Los Angeles to Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols in New York to Little Melvin Williams in Baltimore. There were kingpins doing the same thing across the country. That's not a coincidence. Crack was cheap and easily accessible, making it appealing to lower income communities. The failing public educational system and stagnant economy nationwide only made folks more susceptible before anybody knew how addictive and destructive it was. The war on drugs was predicated on victimizing those addicted without any solutions or alternatives to get out of the life that drove them to drugs in the first place, except to just say no. Studies show that New York, Newark, New Jersey, and Philadelphia were hit harder than D.C., despite our infamous murder capital of the world distinction during the height of the drug-related violence. So as strongly as people feel about Rayful Edmond and his possible release, he was simply a symbol of what was a much bigger problem. His release won't lead to a repeat of 1988. Unfortunately, there are other drugs ravaging communities nationwide already, like K2 and opiates. What we can learn from this is to work on the deeper problems that make people feel hopeless enough to turn to hard drugs or selling them, like improving the educational system, paying people a living wage, providing affordable housing options, and providing treatment options for addicts instead of simply throwing them in jail to get them off the streets. And if you're still not convinced, think about this. The year after Edmond was incarcerated, 1989, crime actually went up, and it didn't peak until 1991. We're going to continue this conversation online. You guys have a beautiful Monday. Get up, DC.
Yeah. And they always want to make it seem like the one person that has the, big story of the street drugs are the source of this. No, these drugs are being brought in by you know who. So it's just that these people have the ability to flood the inner communities with it. So we see that. Let me see here. All right, so we got the final years. Let me see here. Hold up. We got, he said Edmond left prison less than half a year before his death. Yeah, I really think, honestly, you know, they're making it look like he's dead because they already know he is on the radar of the cartels. I don't care how long it goes. You see what happened to Griselda Blanco, right? Griselda Blanco was on the radar of these cartels for years because she was known to have you killed. She went back to where she's from. She got deported after her sentence back to where she was from, Colombia, and got killed. Them cartels don't ever forget. Their family members, sons down the line, when your name is on that list as if you told or you might have killed someone connected to them, they never forget this. So I personally, my opinion, thinks that they staged this man's death and put it across the whole entire news, and they're going to change his identity. The government has the money, they print it, so they can do anything, and they want to make this man be dead so that I guess the cartels will think that he's dead. But I'm sure the cartels don't even think he's dead. The cartels are not thinking this man is dead. They said, yeah, I really don't think he's dead. They said 3 years after his sentence was reduced, Edmond was transferred to a community confinement. On July 31st, 2024, spokesman Scott Taylor for the Federal Bureau of Prisons said he had been transferred to a facility overseen by Federal Bureau of Prisons, Nashville Residential Reentry Management Office. Community confinement could be either in home confinement or residential reentry center or a halfway house. Let me see here. Hold up. At the time, the Federal Bureau of Prisons wouldn't tell WSA what type of community confinement for security reasons, but just 4 months later, the agency confirmed that he had passed away suddenly at a halfway house in Miami. Though officials have not yet confirmed the cause of death, sources have told WSA that he died from a heart attack. So I wonder what autopsy place that he's going to go to, so that, you know, we can see. Yeah. I wonder what halfway house he's going to go to.
People across the district are talking about the sudden death of notorious D.C. drug kingpin Rayful Edmond III. The Federal Bureau of Prisons confirmed the 60-year-old died yesterday at a halfway house in Florida. Now, back in the 80s, Edmond ran a drug operation that smuggled in hundreds of pounds of cocaine every week.
He was arrested in 1989. He later became a key informant. In return for his assistance, he was transferred from prison to a halfway house this past summer.
5 years ago, our dear friend and colleague, the late Bruce Johnson, anchored this half-hour special on Edmond, and we wanted to share some of that with you. It is highly educational tonight.
Wherever there was a corner, you could buy crack.
Keeping it real, we were overwhelmed. When the crack epidemic hit, the D.C. Police Department wasn't ready for it.
When crack was the hustle here in the nation's capital back in the 1980s, nobody, absolutely nobody, worked harder than Rayful Edmond III. In court, prosecutors said Edmond's enterprise brought in several hundred kilos of cocaine per month. It's believed that at its peak, his crack empire was allegedly taking in as much as $300 million per year.
It was hell for a minute.
Here, there was nonstop drug dealing, slingers on the street 24/7, and you had violence that would break out as young men and teenagers fought for turf.
24-year-old Rayful Edmond reportedly controlled as much as 60% of the crack market in D.C. He reportedly had more than 150 people on the payroll at one point. Rayful was never accused of murder, but no fewer than 30 slayings were blamed on his associates. The wars over crack territories helped send the district's homicide rate through the roof, 400 per year, earning the city the dubious title of murder capital of the world.
And that was our dear colleague Bruce Johnson from his 2019 special, Rayful Edmond, DC's crack kingpin 30 years later.
You can watch the full special on WUSA9.com and streaming on WUSA9 Plus.
WUSA9 Plus. Let's see if we can catch that joint. Let me see. WUSA9 Plus. 9 Plus. WUSA9 Plus. WUSA9 Plus. Let me see. I'm gonna see if I can get this joint. WUSA9 Plus. Rayful Edmonds. I'm gonna see if I can get this joint, y'all. Alright, WUSA9 Plus. Trying to see if I can find this. Plus. Let me see. Rayful Edmonds. WUSA9 Rayful Edmonds story. I'm gonna try to get it up here. WUSA9 Plus. Oh, wait, trying to find this joint. All I'm seeing is where they died. I don't want to see that. Got a 60-minute interview. Let's go. Let's see what we got here, y'all.
Steel bars and locked doors of this maximum security federal penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Following his conviction as a drug kingpin, Edmond was sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. But within just days of his arrival, he was back in business. He was dealing drugs right from his prison cell.
Just about everybody inside the jail in some way, shape, form, or fashion is dealing in drugs, either directly or indirectly.
He was caught and 2 years ago struck a deal with the feds. Ever since, he's been telling them exactly how he pulled it off.
Tell me what drugs you dealt with in prison. Cocaine?
Cocaine.
Crack?
Crack.
Heroin?
Heroin.
What else?
Marijuana. Those were the basic 4: cocaine, crack, and heroin, and marijuana.
There's nothing left. You did the gamut.
Yeah, I did it all.
He did it all and then some. For starters, he brought drugs into the prison through this visiting room. He hired other inmates whose girlfriends, during contact visits, would pass the stuff packed in small balloons.
She might kiss him, and he put them in his mouth. He drank a little bit of soda or water, swallow them. She go do it again. Good
He's
day.
got them all inside.
Got them all inside. Then when he get back inside the institution, he spit them up.
What's the most you ever heard of those that any one person...
That I ever seen one person bring? I've seen somebody bring in like 60 of them.
Edmond says prison officials know this goes on.
It keeps the jail mellow. It keep people patient. You know, they be able to get high and chill. So they like this and let these things happen sometimes.
Come on.
Yeah, that's what they do.
He wasn't just selling drugs to other prisoners. He also masterminded the shipment of more than 2 tons of cocaine and crack from the coca fields of Columbia to the District of Columbia.
In some ways, he's like the Babe Ruth of crack dealers.
Eric Holder, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, was, until recently, the top prosecutor in Washington, D.C. It was his office that locked Edmond up in the first place. Tell us the magnitude of his operation from inside the prison.
If you look at it on a monthly basis, he was exceeding that which he did when he was running what, to that time, had been the largest drug operation in Washington, D.C. history.
He was doing more from in prison? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at its maximum, he was doing about 400 kilograms of cocaine per month while in prison, and while on the street, he was doing about 300 at its maximum.
Edmond says it was easy to do from behind bars.
I think it's much easier than when you're on the street.
Easier than on the street?
Much easier because you're right there with the people that have direct access to the narcotics that you need. Colombians, Cubans, Mexicans.
All thrown in together?
All thrown in together.
Thrown in with criminals like Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco, or as Edmond knew him, Chicky, a convicted drug felon.
He had a high-profile case. I had a high-profile case. So, you know, we were just wanting somebody to introduce us. We just was waiting for a person to come along and say, this Chicky, this Ray. And we just gonna go from there. It was right there. What else? You know, what else could we do? It's right there.
Chicky is cocaine royalty, son of Griselda Trujillo Blanco, better known as the godmother of the Colombian drug underworld, and a founding member of the notorious Medellin drug cartel.
Does it make any sense to put the biggest guy from D.C. and someone from one of the largest cartels in Colombia in such close proximity? You'd know it would be inevitable that they'd come together.
No, I'm not sure that's true. I wouldn't make that assumption. I would think that both people, having been put in federal prison, would have been incapacitated.
But they weren't. A year after Edmond met him, Chicky was released and returned to his horse ranch in Colombia. And that's when business really took off.
So how did you pull it off? I mean, you were doing pretty serious and impressive deals.
Oh, yeah.
From inside, I love maximum security penitentiary.
Maximum security.
Specifically, how did you do it?
Specifically, we would use the visiting room, the telephones.
Specifically, these telephones, conveniently located just down the hall from his cell. Edmond would contact Chicky simply by placing a collect call to a friend in Washington. Every one of those calls was recorded.
Hello, this is the AT&T operator with a collect call. Who's calling, please?
Right.
Will you accept the charge? Uh-huh.
The friend, in turn, connected him to Chicky all the way down in Medellin.
What reason would I be calling out the country? I'm not from Colombia or South America. Or
Here's an inmate that's calling Medellin 3 and 4 times
a week. So you know I'm up to something. Just common sense would tell you. If you got good common sense, it would tell you that I'm up to no good.
In one afternoon, he made 59 phone calls to 5 states and 2 foreign countries.
I thought that we listened in on their phone conversations. I thought that when a guy makes a phone call, that the prison kind of knows what he's talking about.
All the phone conversations, all the social phone conversations are recorded, but not all of them are monitored.
Now, does that make any sense?
Well, it doesn't make any sense except for the fact that they don't have the ability to. There's simply not enough people to listen in on all of the phone conversations that all of these prisoners have.
And the prisoners know that. They count on it.
Well, I'm sure that's true.
But Edmond says he and Chicky weren't taking any chances. They spoke in code.
Remember, he used to live in 18th Street. Yeah. That he was going to move to downtown to 16th Street.
Yeah. When he made that statement to me, he was letting me know that the price went down 3,000 and went from 19th Street to 16th Street. So I automatically knew what he was talking about.
Edmond used an entirely different code when he spoke to his distributors back in Washington, D.C. Believe it or not, he used Pig Latin.
You want to hear a little bit?
Yeah, I want to hear what you'd say.
How could say the cadet you could do the cadet for the comedian?
What did you say?
Oh, I was just saying, I feel good today.
So fast. You could do that.
You got to be fast so nobody will understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you could just do this whole interview like that?
Yeah, I could do the whole interview like that.
Now, what kind of money were you making out of this?
I wasn't making the money that I should be making, but, you know, I was getting $5,000 here, $10,000 there, which is good money for somebody that's in jail and doing time.
It was good money for anyone. $200,000 in 2 years collected for him by associates on the outside. But the money flow was disrupted when Chicky was gunned down in a Medellin nightclub, but only temporarily. because Edmond quickly struck up with another inmate, this time from the Cali cartel. Freddie Aguilera was serving 60 years with no parole, just a cell block away.
And you hook up with another Colombian.
Yeah. Like I told you, the temptation, you know, you got people every day, different people coming to me trying to hook up drug deals, and this is something that I can do and I know how to do. So it was just hard to say, no, I don't want to be involved in it, when I can just say, okay, let me set this deal up and give me a quick $20,000 or $30,000.
Prison authorities never did figure out what Edmond was up to, but the FBI and local police here in Washington, D.C. did, thanks to a tip from a jailhouse informant. When the feds went to Edmond with the evidence, much to their surprise, he agreed to cooperate. With his help, the government was able to lock up 15 drug dealers, among them some of the most violent drug thugs in the nation's capital.
Why did you decide to cooperate?
Because I wanted to put it all behind me. I wanted to help my family, first of all. That was the first thing that gave me the motivation. My mom, my aunt, and my 3 sisters.
His mom, his sisters, brothers, brothers-in-law, and others were all in the family business with Edmond and are all serving time. His mother and sisters are together at the Alderson prison camp in West Virginia. The feds told Edmond they would not recommend a sentence reduction for him, but they agreed to go to bat for his 56-year-old mother, who was sentenced to 24 years in prison for her role in Rayful's drug enterprise.
That's my mom. And, you know, I love her, so, you know, and I miss her. And, I hope she'll be okay.
I feel very honored. I mean, he has life or 2 life sentences, and he didn't think about himself. He thought about his mother.
Constance Bootsy Perry is the unlikely matriarch of Washington's most prominent crime family. Before she got locked up, she had a $40,000 a year job in the federal government.
So you got your kids educated, you made sure they went to church, you had a good job, your ex-husband had a good job?
Yeah, he had a job. He worked for the government, too.
He worked for the government. You were middle-class people.
Yes.
He was not raised in the inner city. He lived in the suburbs.
No.
Safe place.
Yes.
How many of your children are in jail?
6.
You had 7 kids and 6 are in jail.
Yes.
You're in jail?
Yes.
Come on. What happened?
I can't really say, and I think basically I'm in here only because I knew what was going on.
She was a mom to me, but also she was a personal friend to me. So when things, selling drugs, like I told you before, so many things go wrong. People get killed, people lose their jobs, people get strung out. And whenever things go wrong or things don't go right in my life, she was my friend. I go talk to her and tell her about all these things, about what's going on with me. And she knew about all that. And she ended up telling all the things that I told her to an informant on a wiretap, and that made her be part of the conspiracy.
Well, it was more than that. Bootsy admits she once counted her son's drug money, and she accepted a car, a house, and other gifts purchased with his drug proceeds.
My mother always wanted a nice big house, so I wanted to be able to buy that for her one day. She always wanted a Mercedes. I wanted to be able to buy that for her.
When Edmond was a child, both his parents sold drugs. The father, allegedly heroin. Bootsy says she sold diet pills and admits she sometimes had Rayful handle the money. But she blames his friends for getting him into the drug trade.
He saw the fast money, or he saw them driving big cars, and he said, hey, man, how did you do this? How did you get this?
The money.
Yeah, the money. Or greed. Just say greed. I'd say greed.
This is your watch.
Yeah, it used to be my watch.
Used to be your watch.
Yeah,
the government now has his watch.
Yeah, the government owns it now.
How much did this watch cost?
Oh, close to $100,000.
Was this typical of what you would buy when you were...
Typical things that I would buy when I was home.
Well, you were fancy.
Yeah, I was real jazzy. Yeah, I like, try to have a lot of class.
Did you wear a lot of diamonds on your fingers?
I wasn't. I just had 1 carat. I just had a 10-carat diamond ring.
Oh.
A 3-carat for my ear, and just a diamond chain that matched the watch.
Very simple.
Yeah, just, simple, but stand out.
Today, he's trying not to stand out. So the feds have put him in a little-known witness protection program for convicts. He lives under an alias in a different prison where it's hoped those he betrayed won't find him. But if he's hiding out, why is he talking to us? He says he wants the kids in Washington, D.C., who see him as a hero, to know that what he did was wrong.
A lot of my friends from my neighborhood lost their lives because I brought drugs in the community. You know, the
Crack
people
babies?
dying.
Crack
Yes,
babies?
some babies probably was born from crack because of me. Yeah, I feel bad about it now, but back then, you know, I was just thinking about the power.
We tried to ask the Bureau of Prisons what they're doing to prevent prison drug dealing, but they refused to comment. So we asked their new boss, Eric Holder, who has not yet had a role in making prison policy.
As a result of the Rayful incident, a task force was created to really look at the whole system and decide what we could be doing.
It's been 2 years since you first found out about this. Not you, I mean the Bureau of Prisons, the government, the Justice Department. It's been 2 years, and from what I'm hearing, the problem really has not been fixed yet.
I think that's right.
You're saying that it's remotely possible that as we're sitting here, somebody in some prison's making a phone call and setting up a drug deal somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's remotely possible, but I think we're also going to be in a position real soon to say it's not possible.
Do you think that's going on today, right now?
I'm quite sure it is, yeah. People are sitting in prison making drug deals, yeah. And you know, you're sitting there, you have nothing to do. And everybody needs money, and they love money, so I'm quite sure that it's going on right now.
In fact, the Bureau of Prisons may have made it even easier. When the FBI began its investigation of Rayful Edmond, there were 3 phones on his cell block, and inmates could use them every other day. Today, there are 4 phones, and prisoners can use them every day.
Yeah, so he was telling his mother everything, and I'm sure the mom made a couple moves for him. And that's one thing about with the feds. If you got any family members involved in your dirty business, they're going to charge them. And that's all it takes for them to be involved with anything with the money, going to pick the money up, dealing with the money. The money will implicate you in everything. And there's informants everywhere. People still have this mind state as in it's a street code. There is no street code, man. I want to tell you that right now. There is no street code, man. At all.
Ready for it. When
It's
crack
an illusion.
was the hustle here in the
It's an illusion. I'm gonna be honest with you, man.
Rayful got too close to.
Yeah, it's an illusion, man. For real. It's a straight illusion, man. Yeah, it's an illusion, man. Let me see, hold up. Yeah. We already know. Everybody acts like they not going to tell. But when they talking about life in jail and then your family is getting locked up, they locked his mom, his aunt, sisters, brothers. Why was he going to be loyal to these people from the cartel? And then the feds offered him witness protection. Why would he be loyal? See, people don't think about that when they're making these moves out in the street. You think that you can just tell somebody, yo, man, we a family. We got to be loyal. No telling. They talk about taking somebody's freedom and their family's freedom. He told on everybody. And this is why I really think that they staged his death. The death was staged so that it can look like he's dead. And we're going to speculate. Is he dead? Is he alive? I don't know if he's dead. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's alive. They're going to change his identity as in his facial structure. They already had his name in the making, his new social security number. These things are all made up. So they can do that for you. They run the world. The government runs this world. So if they want to change your identity for you cooperating, they will do that, man. Let me see here. Hold on. Let me see here what we got here. federal. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see. Washington Post. Rayful Edmonds. Yeah. And you see that smile he had on his face when he was talking about the drug game and him cooperating. He was a good actor, you know. He got in with the cartel and he brought him down. So you better know it's some family members that they want him dead. And he been in jail for 35 years. So I'm sure we seen that video of him at the airport saying, "I'm back. I'm better than ever." Let me see if I can find that video. Let me see if I can find that video, man. Let me see if I can find that video. Rayful Edmonds. Let me see. See if Rayful Edmonds. Let me see. Hold on. He said, "I'm back. I'm better than ever." Let me see. Hold up. And they made sure all the outlets is saying this. This is all the outlets identifying that he's dead.
Death of infamous D.C. cocaine kingpin Rayful Edmond. He died at the age of 60 months after he was released from prison.
Edmond's drug operation profited hundreds of millions of dollars at the height of the crack epidemic back in the 1980s. Fox 5's Bob Barnard is live in Northwest tonight with more. Bob?
There are no confirmed details about his death, but numerous reports indicate Rayful Edmond died suddenly of a heart attack at the halfway house where he was living in Miami.
I'm back better than ever.
This is the most recent and only video of Rayful Edmond we've seen since his release from a federal prison last summer, captured on camera at an airport just after his release and shared on social media.
My first thought was, man, I hope he wasn't assassinated. But as it turns out, he apparently died a natural death. And anybody who's been in prison long enough eating prison food, it doesn't take much to imagine how that can happen.
Billy Murphy is one of the attorneys who represented Rayful Edmond over the years. Here was Murphy outside D.C.'s federal courthouse in September 1990, the day Edmond was sentenced to life in prison.
This kid was a genius. There was no question about it. I sat with him every day during a very long trial. What would have happened to him had he instead of having two parents who trained him to be a drug dealer? From the earliest of ages, I might tell you, if he had had two parents who were successful business people or business executives who trained him in the right direction.
Rayful Edmond spent 35 years in prison, arrested at age 24, and convicted of running a multi-million-dollar criminal conspiracy, dealing crack cocaine on the streets of D.C., leading to multiple murders as well. Then U.S. Attorney Jay Stevens.
I think Rayful Edmond has been held accountable for the human destruction and tragedy that he has brought to this city and to the lives of thousands of young people who live in this community.
But Rayful Edmond would continue running his enterprise from inside prison, later becoming an informant, leading to the arrests of nearly a dozen of his former cohorts.
I don't think I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. I think I'm going to go home one day soon.
You think your appeal will be successful?
Yes, I hope and pray that it will.
Turns out his prayers were answered. Despite being sentenced to life in prison, Edmond was released into the community last summer, his sudden death coming just 5 months later. And there's no word on any services. Rayful Edmond is survived by his mother, who served time in prison as part of that conspiracy, and at least one sister. Angie?
Yeah, so you think about it, man. They had to make it look like that. His mom's still alive. They had to make it look like that, man. Them cartels, when he did, he infiltrated that organization. So you better know them cartels wanted him dead. Deep. So they had to make it look like he died, man. I don't think he died at all. Especially when they just say suddenly. And we're going to see if they have a funeral. You know? Because I'm sure if they have a funeral, it's going to be a big statement. His trial's been publicized. His life has been publicized. Why wouldn't his death be publicized? Come on, man. Gotta pay attention. Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see. Yeah. It's always gonna be violence. He said, "Oh, it's a Haitian gang leader explains why boys, man." Let's see what this is. Let's see what's going on over in Haiti. Let's see what's going on in Haiti, man. I want to see what's going on in Haiti, man.
For months, but now we are getting an inside look at just how dangerous and violent conditions are in parts of the country. BBC News senior international investigative correspondent Nawal Al-Maghafi recently spoke with one of the gang leaders, and we need to warn you, some of the images and content in this report are disturbing.
Downtown Port-au-Prince, now the scene of daily street fighting between gangs vying for control. Once one of the city's most populated areas, it's now a ghost town. We're with the Kenyan police on a patrol. They're here to support the Haitian forces as part of a multinational response to restore law and order. It's not long before we come under fire.
We're being shot at by a gang member from that direction, so the guys in here.
And then this, a human body burning in the middle of the street. We're on our way to meet the leader of one of the most prominent gangs here, filming our journey undercover. Reynald Destina, notorious for kidnapping, is wanted by the FBI.
Your gang and gangs like yours have spread terror across the city. You have raped people, you have killed.
Your heart rips right out of your chest.
Sometimes the group gets excited.
Still walking free.
Is it possible that there's a serial killer out there?
But for these victims,
It was the brutality of this that kept it in my mind all these years.
justice is finally coming.
Detectives now have the killer's DNA profile.
My job is to throw bad guys in jail.
That makes it all the sweeter.
Finally caught. Now streaming free on the True Crime Network app.
I don't even know where that's coming from. Hold up.
The Chicago Bears are trying to stop their now 8-game losing streak, while the Detroit Lions are...
Yeah, hold up. I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that came from. Hold up. We gonna get that back. Hold up. I don't know where that came from. You know, it's always something. Let me see if I can get that back. Alright. Let's see if we can get that back. Let's see if we can get that back, y'all. I don't know where that came from. CBS 80. We're gonna try to get that back. I don't know where that came from, but we're gonna try to get that back. It's going down in Haiti. They shooting at the police shooting back. That's how you know it's real. You ain't got them problems over here. Let's see if we can run this joint back. I think I got it. Back. Let's run it back.
To support the Haitian forces as part of a multinational response to restore law and order. It's not long before we come under fire.
We're being shot at by a gang member from that direction, so the guys in here are just attacking.
And then this. A human body burning in the middle of the street. We're on our way to meet the leader of one of the most prominent gangs here, filming our journey undercover. Rayful Destina, notorious for kidnapping, is wanted by the FBI.
Your gang and gangs like yours have spread terror across the city. You have raped people, you have killed people.
When we capture an enemy, we are celebrating a victory. So sometimes the group gets excited. They capture somebody and they do things they weren't supposed to do with them, because when it's been the other way around, they would have done the same to us.
Gang warfare has driven 700,000 people out of their homes to overcrowded schools like these, where sexual violence and drug use is rife. This is the third place Negociant has had to make home. She tells me she's too afraid to sleep here. She stays up to watch over her 5 children.
My neighborhood was taken over by gangs. I left and went to live in Solino for safety. Today again, I'm on the run to save my life and my children.
The violence is escalating, a clear sign the Kenyan strategy is failing. 2,500 personnel were due to be deployed, but only 400 are here. They tell us they're making progress and take us to see a former police station that they've now retaken. But the area is still surrounded by gang snipers. The police fire some warning shots.
Just look, they can shoot from here.
So just that building over there, the red with the blue, is where the snipers are shooting at you?
You hear the shots?
Yep.
Okay, stay down now.
The violence permeates every stage of life here. Shayna is 2 years old. She, like 760,000 children in Haiti, is starving.
I would like my kids to be able to eat bread, even if I can't. I would like to get proper care for my child too. I don't want to lose her.
But as the situation here continues to deteriorate, Haiti risks losing an entire generation. Noelle McAfee, BBC News, Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
And Noelle McAfee joins us now from London. Can you tell our audience, in your experience in meeting with this gang leader, if he at all articulated what his goals are, what his gang wants, what the other gangs in Haiti want?
You know what, it's a really important question, because what struck me about our interview with him is some of what he said echoed a lot of what normal Haitian civilians told us. He said, we want parties in Port-au-Prince. They wouldn't be joining and following people like me. He made quite a stunning claim. He said, you know, they join me because, not because they're afraid of me. They join me because I make sure they keep away from famine. I make sure that they're fed and that they can pay to go to school. And I found that very interesting. I think one thing that is lacking in trying to resolve the situation in Haiti is really looking at the core of it. Why are these young boys joining these gangs? And it is because of high unemployment. It is because of the lack of opportunity and the lack of governance.
And the other question that people will have is, how are these gangs receiving their weapons, how they're receiving money, who is organizing them? Because Haitians don't produce any guns. The country does not produce weapons. Those weapons flow into the country illegally from the United States, obviously. And this gang leader, as you know, is wanted by the FBI, but you were able to get to him at great risk to yourself. But I'm curious as to whether or not they shared with you who ultimately is making the decisions for some of these gangs.
You know, during our research, we looked into this briefly and we saw that a lot of the guns that are being funneled into these gangs are coming from places like the United States. As we were working towards this trip, we actually found out that some of the weapons that were coming had just been stopped in the weeks before we got there. They're also coming from neighboring countries through places like the Dominican Republic. But one of the interesting things that Tilapli, the gang leader we spoke to, actually told me, he said, you should look into who's in government. You should be looking into why, you know, our existence benefits them. You question where we got all these guns from. Well, why don't you ask them, how did we get these guns? And maybe you'll find out that they are complicit too. Maybe you'll find out that they're profiteering from this. Obviously, these are such big claims to make, and we weren't able to actually get into if any of them were true. But I think, yeah, it was a very interesting argument made by him.
Yeah, that ultimately is the question that a lot of people have, which is who in the Haitian political world is actually maneuvering or puppeteering some of these gang leaders. So the final question is the people that you spoke with. You know, this is such a tragic story, and I've covered it for many, many years. But what did they tell you that they want the rest of the world to know about their dire straits?
When we, when we spoke to the young men in the hospital, we went to a hospital and we went to a ward full of young men who had been caught in the crossfire of this violence. One of the young men was actually due to go to the United States to study. And, you know, he said the same. He said, we want jobs, we want opportunity, we want stability, and we want a government that cares for the Haitian people and not for itself. The same thing, we went to a pediatric ward where we met the mother who you saw in my piece, Vanda, whose daughter Shayna is suffering from severe acute malnutrition. You know, she said, I just want a future for my children. I want stability. And I don't want to see more of these quick fixes. You know, they see this Kenyan force that's there on the ground right now to try and restore law and order as a quick fix. It's not really looking into the core of the problem and why these gangs are evolving in the first place.
An excellent point, and excellent reporting. Noel Al-Magafi, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Vlad, for having me.
Yeah. It's bad in Haiti. It's definitely bad in Haiti. And that's how you got to be thankful, honestly, when you're here in America, because their life is just like nothing. It means nothing. For real. I never want to visit there. Like, nah, I would never want to visit nowhere like that. Yeah, you see, they was shooting at the police as the police ride by. Like, damn. And like they said, where are they getting these guns from? How are they getting these guns? Because they are being bought there by people that are making money from bringing the guns there. So the government doesn't care. You see how they had all of those people bunched in one room talking about they at school? They don't have nowhere to go. They taking advantage of the kids, assaulting them. Like, it makes you be grateful, honestly, for what you got. And, you know, people here don't understand that kind of stuff, especially if you've never really been through anything. You've never been to jail. You've never been in a crazy situation. You can't even feel what those people are going through to be happy to be here in America, honestly. Because, damn. Over there, they don't care about your life. Even though here they don't really care about your life, but it's structured a certain way for life to function. But in Haiti, it ain't structured for nobody to function. It's you better get down with whatever gang and know that you're gonna die. You're gonna survive until you get killed, because they shooting each other because nobody has nothing. Nobody has nothing to look forward to, and whatever government was there didn't care about the people. It's crazy, you know. Let me look that up. Hold up. Let me look what happened to Haiti's government. Let me look up that up. What happened to Haiti's government? Yeah. Let's look that up. Yeah, what happened to Haiti's government? Let's see. What happened to Haiti's government? It's not saying. Does Haiti still have a government? What the hell? I don't understand what they saying. Hold on. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what happened to Haiti's government. I'm gonna see what they say with the news then. Man, this is rough over in Haiti, man. Damn. Like, rough. Boy. Let me see. Is this something we can watch? It's rough over there. You see stuff like this. This makes you better be grateful for America with this. You could have grew up in this kind of environment. This could be your everyday living. You know? And a lot of people take it for granted, because this could be your everyday living. Every day living like this. And I'm sure, you know, the gangs, they come in there and take advantage of these people, because they don't care. They don't care at all. What happened in Haiti? Assassination. Let me see. Hold on. What they talking about with the assassination? Let's see. Yeah, they assassinated. Let me see. Hold up. Crazy. I'm trying to see this right now. They assassinated the president of Haiti. They don't care. Straight up. They don't care at all. At all. Let me see. Hold up.
Moise. The gunmen, speaking English and Spanish, reportedly yelled they were DEA agents. But the Haitian government says they were instead mercenaries, highly trained killers who shot dead the 53-year-old Moise and critically wounded his wife. Now in charge, the country's prime minister, who's calling for calm while declaring a state of emergency, with the world watching.
We need a lot more information, but it's very worrisome about the state of Haiti.
In the last few months, Haiti has grown increasingly chaotic, with spiraling gang violence and inflation. Protesters had accused Moise of becoming an authoritarian by trying to rewrite the country's constitution.
Did President Moise anticipate an assassination attempt?
Probably, because if you refer to a last statement, the last interview he gave in January, where he said that he knows that a lot of people want him to be killed because of his reforms, of his policies.
Haiti is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, and a catastrophic earthquake in 2010 left more than 200,000 people dead by some estimates. Tonight, the airport in Port-au-Prince is shut down. The Dominican Republic has closed its border with Haiti, and the U.S. Embassy there is telling its staff to shelter in place.
Haiti's ambassador to the U.S. tells me that the country's first lady has just arrived in Miami for treatment and that the UN here plans to hold a Security Council meeting on Haiti tomorrow, Kate.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah. When you see stuff like this, you better be thankful for where you live at. Boy. But you know, people take a lot of things for granted. Damn, because ain't no love over there. We see this now. There's no love over there. It's straight war. And you know, their money is printed too, but they don't have no structure. And whoever that president was, he tried to reform some things over there, and it made the people want to kill him. He was trying to make things better, I guess, with their constitution. No rights. It meant nothing. The gangs took over. Everybody's struggling, so nobody wants to hear what you're talking about. We trying to survive, and this makes you appreciate America. But you know, these are things that people in America don't pay attention to. People in America don't care about these things. Because fortunately, these type of situations haven't hit here. If something like this stuff was to hit America, people wouldn't know what to do. All the things that people cry about and the concerns that people have, they wouldn't be your concern, man. Crazy. And they said Haiti's prime minister, what? He's in Puerto Rico. He's in Puerto Rico. They said, aside from human catastrophe, Haiti still has not fully recovered from the devastating earthquake in 2010 that killed 220,000 people and left out 1.5 million homeless. Many of them living in poor built and exposed houses. More earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods have followed. God damn. They tried to rebuild the infrastructure and sense of national unity. Like, people over here, this is what it looked like, man. Everybody just guns and masks. Like, man, these things make you be grateful for living in America. God damn. Many armed groups have formed in recent years, claim to be community groups carrying out essence of the work. It's like, honestly, this shows you that there's really nothing to live for. What's the purpose to live for over there? This is the example that life is nothing over there. Damn. This is the example. Sheesh. This ain't even no place you want to go visit. You know how people travel the world. You want to see different places. This ain't no place to visit. Hell no. Rough. That's real, man. But yeah, man. Oh, man. I appreciate everybody that watches the channel. I appreciate everybody that subscribes to the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Share this video. You already know it's your boy DZ, man. It's not about the setback. It's about the get back. Nah.